Doesn't feel like I belong. Trying to keep it alive on this hungry side for a better confirmation. Yeah, I'm heading for the station and I can feel love is real. Now you try. If you're willing to just come along with me, we can feel no more lies. I see my dream of you and all my friends by my side told me that I should find some love. I've been walking around trying to catch you with my eyes. With no one in my heart, but I guess it's a start. An easy conversation. Get a bit of your attention. I can feel love is real.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Astronomer William Jack Welch has died. William Jack Welch, a pioneering astronomer whose visionary work in radio astronomy helped advance the search for extraterrestrial technology, passed away this week at the age of 90. Welch, a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, UCB, played a pivotal role in the design and development of the SETI Institute's Allen Telescope Array, ATA, significantly advancing our understanding of the universe. Welch was married to SETI Institute co-founder Jill Tarter. Together, as a team, they envisioned and built the ATA, the first and still only observatory built specifically to conduct SETI research. Welch and Tarter helped shape the SETI Institute from the beginning, building it to become a world-class scientific research organization and propelling its mission. Welch was the founding board member and the founding vice president of the SETI Institute, elected at the first board of directors meeting on December 20th, 1984. Welch served as vice president, vice chair, from 1984 to 2000, as board director trustee from 1984 to 2014, and was an emeritus trustee of the SETI Institute. Rest in peace, Jack Welch. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us. And for all the latest news, go to nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
Coming to you from the great Northwest, this is Night Dreams Talk Radio. I'm Gary, and boy, it's already the 22nd of March. April is going to come along, and guess what? We got to pay the government. Well, in the news, it's really interesting. The House passed a $1.2 trillion spending bill. Now it's been sent to the Senate, well, to hopefully pass before a shutdown. Now, you know what was also interesting? The president today got on the news media, and what was very interesting, he was saying that this $1.2 trillion, it's like you write a check out, you got to pay for things. And what he was saying is these $1.2 trillion is going to go for, well, debts in the past. Now, I don't know if he made a mistake or what he was talking about, but I was under the assumption that 1.2 trillion is to keep the government from being shut down, laying off people, military-wise, whatever. But that was rather confusing. Well, if you lived on an island in Texas called Mustang Island, wow, what they found was something that washed up on the beach. Beachcombers were walking on the beach. They found this creature, well, about 6 inches in diameter. They looked at it. They picked it up. It looked like a giant eyeball with spaghetti coming out of it. Now, they said, gee, the news media played it up. It's an alien, maybe from an alien craft that crashed in the ocean. I don't know, but maybe we're always finding new things in our own ocean that really amazes people. JC, if you think about that, a giant eyeball, 6 inches in diameter, with arms and legs of spaghetti.
Maybe it's an Italian alien. I don't know, but I mean, spaghetti looking. That would be strange to walk upon something like that, though, I must say.
Well, that's the thing I would think about. Every time I eat spaghetti and meatballs, now I'm going to start thinking about this giant eye with spaghetti, arms and legs.
Yeah. Every time you go to take a bite, you got to wonder, was it going to bite back?
It could be. Well, we're going to have a great guest on tonight. We're going to talk about his movie career, his dancing, and he had a couple songs that made the 100 chart. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Get yourself in that easy chair, prop up your feet, pour yourself something warm to drink, put a log in the fire, because we're going to take you for a good ride here tonight on Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Pyramids and the Great Floods is a must-get, must-read, fascinating new book by John Shaughnessy. Discover the purpose of the global pyramids and how an advanced Type 3 society used them to control global floods and reduce the impact of instant ice ages. In 1997, a geologist discovered 30 times the Earth's surface oceans located below the upper mantle, the source of Noah's floodwaters. While cataclysm researchers have been looking to the heavens for the doomsday catalyst, it turns out that all the while, it's been right under our very feet. Hell really is down below. Pyramids and the Great Floods describes in full detail how ancient past societies used the global pyramids to lower the damage of floods. You will be amazed. Pyramids and the Great Floods by John Shaughnessy. Get it now on Amazon in paperback and on Amazon Kindle.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, Sir Michael.
A reclusive reputation has made George Chakiris highly sought after for interviews. Now, as he prepares to release his memoirs, entitled My Westside Story, he opens up about life in and out of the spotlight. From Natalie Wood to lovely Richard Beymer, to the mercurial Jerome Robbins and passionate Rita Moreno, with whom Chakiris remains friends, Chakiris writes, quote, I know exactly where my gratitude belongs, adding, and I still marvel at how unbeknownst to me at the time, the joyful path of my life was paved one night in 1949 when Jerome Robbins sat Leonard Bernstein and Arthur Laurents down in his apartment and announced, I have an idea. Academy Award and Golden Globe winner George Chakiris is perhaps best known internationally for his role of Bernardo in Westside Story. In November of 2011, Chakiris received what many refer to as the highest honor in Hollywood. His hand and footprints were placed in cement for all of history in connection with the 50th anniversary of the classic film West Side Story, which premiered at Grauman's over half a century ago. George Chakiris was born in Norwood, Ohio. He's the son of Stephen and Zoe Chakiris. They were immigrants from Greece. A graduate of the American School of Dance, Chakiris recalls the early days of passing Grauman's Chinese Theater, quote, where the world's most glamorous people were seen, close quote. never thinking that one day he'd be attending his own premiere for Westside Story. In 1947, George Chakiris made his film debut in the chorus of Song of Love. Later, he appeared in several small roles in various musical films, usually as a dancer or member of the chorus. He was one of the dancers in Marilyn Monroe's Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend number in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, released in 1953. He again appeared as a dancer alongside Rosemary Clooney in White Christmas. In Love, You Didn't Do Right by Me.
Well, George, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
I'll say thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm so glad to be here. You've just reminded me of some very, very nice things. Thank you for that.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming on. And, I tell you, you have a very extensive, bio. And you are one of the very few people, actually, well, there was a lot, but I mean, to work with Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Well, I was one of the guys behind her in that incredible number, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. I always like, whenever I talk about that number, I always like to say the name of the choreographer who choreographed that for Marilyn. His name was Jack Cole, and he was that's who she always wanted to work with. So I got to be one of the guys behind her, and I think that's my favorite credit. I just love being able to say I was one of the guys behind her. But I got to be around her, not socially, but after work hours, things like that at other times too. And I was always impressed by how lovely she was, how quiet she was, and she never did anything to draw attention to herself. But she was really quite lovely. Yeah.
Oh, she was a very beautiful person. And one of my favorite movies was Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Yes, one of mine too. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, and Give a Girl a Break too, and White Christmas. But I still.
Oh God. Well.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, White Christmas is to me is one of. I was a dancer in a few of those really great movie musicals, and but being in White Christmas, there's Rosemary Clooney was one of the stars. She was. You would, if you never met Rosemary, you would have loved Rosemary. Everybody did. She was the sweetest person on the planet. But she sang a number in White Christmas called "Love You Didn't Do Right by Me," and she was surrounded by four guys, and I got to be one of the guys. And being just because there were just four of us, we were people noticed us more, and. I got lots of fan mail because of that, being in that number with Rosie, and that ultimately led me to my contract with Paramount Studios. So White Christmas always stands out a bit more in my mind, first of all because of Rosie so much, but also because it got me one rung up on the ladder, so to speak. It got me onto contract to Paramount Studios, and that was a really great thing to happen. It felt great, of course.
And one of my other favorites is No Business Like Show Business, 1954.
Yeah, well, it's one of my favorites too. Of course, the Ethel Merman, Dan Daly, Donald O'Connor, Mitzi Gaynor, Johnny Ray. It had a wonderful cast, and of course, Marilyn Monroe was in that movie as well. And the choreographer for that particular movie was a man called Robert Alton. And Mr. Alton, everybody called him Bob, but Mr. Alton was a theater, and he'd done lots of Broadway shows, so he was a very important man. And he had been contracted to do all the musical numbers in No Business Like Show Business. And there's a number in that called. What was it called? Maryland does. The heat wave number. Sorry, we're having a heat wave. That number, it's an Irving Berlin score. But Marilyn wanted Jack Cole specifically to choreograph that number for her. But Mr. Alton had been contracted to do all the numbers. So he very nicely created a heatwave number for her. And I was one of the guys that he used for that number to create a number for Marilyn. And after about 4 weeks of rehearsal, he was ready. He thought it was ready to show to her. And so she came to the rehearsal by herself, no entourage, just quiet, sweet, charming. And she looked at what he had choreographed for her, and it was fine, but she wanted Jack Cole. And ultimately, she got Jack Cole to choreograph the Heatwave number in that movie for her. And she was absolutely right, because with all due respect to Robert Alton, Jack Cole had a very, very different style, and it really suited Marilyn just beautifully. So she really, her instincts were always right on the nose.
Did you ever meet Gene Kelly?
Yes, I did. I was one of the dancers in Brigadoon in that movie, and also I did a French movie musical called The Young Girls of Rochefort with Catherine Deneuve and with Gene. So that was 1966, I think. So Gene and I we didn't have scenes together in that movie, but we saw each other every day, and I was in his company. Also in Brigadoon, there's a special number called the Sword Dance, which is done by a character whose name is Harry Beaton. And again, that number is just Harry Beaton and 4 male dancers around him doing the Scottish sword dance. Gene choreographed that, and it was really hard doing that kind of. You're on the balls of your feet constantly doing a Scottish sword dance, and with days of rehearsal and days of shooting, you really start your shins really get very painful. And Gene was great. He took such great care of us, got orange juice for us to make sure we're all feeling as good as we could feel. And he was wonderful to work with.
You know, every time I hear his name I go back in that song, like, I'm singing in the rain.
Oh
yeah.
Well, listen, that still remains the best movie musical, I think so myself. I love it. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect, and everyone in it is great. Debbie is amazing in it, and that's when we first get to see Sid Charisse in a prominent dance role that was just brought her to everybody's attention as well. But and Donald O'Connor, I mean, just great people, great talents, and a wonderful story. Everything produced, I think, directed with Stanley Donen, and it's just a great movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got to ask you a question, George. What got you interested in acting, and how old were you when that bug started hitting you?
Well, I think I kind of remember that. You know, I didn't know anything about theater, but I certainly, as a kid, like most of us, grew up going to the movies, and going to the movies just, I don't know, it just hit my imagination like nothing else, and so I didn't know that those people up on the screen did what they did. I didn't know that people sang, danced, and acted. I just knew I saw them do what they did, but I had no idea professionally what people, how people arrived at what they were doing. To be trained actors, dancers, and singers, and so on. It was just a dreamy kind of view of the movies. And I think when I was about 13 or 12, something like that, I sang. We lived in Long Beach, California, and I was a boy soprano at the time, and I sang every Sunday at an Episcopal church for Sunday services, and that choir very often over the years sang for movies. And while I was there singing with the choir, we were in a concert sequence for a movie called Song of Love with Katharine Hepburn and Paul Henry and Robert Walker. So we were actually in a movie studio. We were at MGM, and that was just a really heady experience for me because I dreamed about all that stuff. But then there we were actually in a movie studio, and that experience kind of cemented that desire even more strongly for me. Although I still have no idea how to get anywhere and do anything. But when I was still in high school, the end of high school, I was about 16, I guess, something like that. And there was a girl in school, Joan Scanlon, who was a dancer. And she told me about a ballet school in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, called the American School of Dance. And she said, Sis Chakiris and Leslie Caron take class there. Well, that's all I had to hear. And so one day I took the train from Long Beach to Hollywood to watch a professional class at 11:30 in the morning. There was nobody famous in class, but when I watched that dance class, I knew that I really wanted to do that. So I got a job at the May Company downtown Los Angeles as an errand boy in the advertising department, and I worked there all day, and then I started taking classes at night, 2 classes every night. So that was my first experience at being professional, if you like. And by the way, speaking of singing in the rain, when I started taking class at the American School, a lot of the kids who were in class were already working on singing in the rain. So I got to hear all their stories, going to have something to eat after class and all that. Anyway, that was my but I never dancing was the first thing that I studied to be professional as a dancer. Again, it never occurred to me that there were other aspects to performing, singing and dancing. I'm sorry, acting. But of course, little by little, you learn those things. I was a little on the slow side, but my first experience as an actor was when I was hired to play Riff in the London company of Westside Story. So of course I was playing a part, I was playing a role, and up there I was acting, and it was so interesting to me, though I had never studied acting, how your instincts and your general good sense of what people are asking you to do, you just arrive. You do what you're supposed, what you've been hired to do. So that was my first acting experience. But after that, I seriously thought, okay, study acting and so on. And I became an acting student after that. But I didn't. That was my first. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. Experience as an actor, because I was hired not just as a dancer, but as an actor as well, to play a part. And I really loved it. I played Riff in that company, in the London company of Westside, for a year and a half before the film. And then I as you probably know, because you announced it, I was tested for the film as well, and was eventually cast as Bernardo in the film. So doing Westside in the theater 8 times a week for a year and a half, you learn a great deal. First of all, you learn how to perform in front of an audience. An audience always lets you know how you're doing it, if you're all right or not. So I began to get comfortable, not just as a dancer, but as an actor as well, because I really loved the part I was playing. I was playing Rip, but I loved acting. I found that out by actually doing it, just as later I found out how much I loved singing. But I discovered those things by actually doing them, and doing them is actually very much a learning process as well.
It is, George. You know, when I was young and I was always interested in amateur radio. I got my license when I was 12 years old. And I always wanted to be a DJ, spin records. And I went to school to learn to be a DJ, which didn't work out. I ended up being a talk show host instead. But, you know, I went up to my parents when I was like 12, 13 years old. I said, you know what I want to be? And my dad, you know, said, well, you know, with your electronic background, you should be in electronics. My mom wanted me to be a priest. And I said, well, I want to be a DJ. And boy, my mom went into the kitchen, started crying. My dad says, you won't make a living. Well, you know, you need to have a man's job. You need to, you know, go out and, you know, do this and do that. Why would you want to be behind a microphone? You know how that is. And you know what? Years later, my dad came up to me and he said, you know what? I was wrong. You're good at it.
Okay.
And did you have anything like that with your parents when you said, you know, I want to get into acting and dancing and singing?
No, you know, so many of the people I went to school with and worked with and so on, a lot of people have stories that say my family never wanted me to do this for those very same reasons. But my mother and father, for reasons I've never understood, never had any problem with me doing what I wanted to do. They were supportive the whole time. And I realized how lucky I was to have parents who understood that I was doing something I loved doing. And so I was just had total support. By the way, it must have been difficult for your mother going from the priest to do it as a jockey.
Well, the bad thing is I was Protestant. And my mom wanted me to convert to Catholic, you know, being a Catholic and become a priest. And actually, I used to joke at him. I said, you know, I don't want to be anything other than the president. Now, hey, George, we need to take a break. This break is about 3 minutes long, and we're going to come back and find out more about your acting career and your jury. So we're going to find out all that about George. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio.
From best-selling author Paul Wallace, The Invasion of Eden. Did our ancestors warn us about E.T. invasions? And is history repeating itself in the 21st century? The standoff between the Pentagon and the U.S. Congress has exposed a dark web of secrecy surrounding UFO retrievals. The Invasion of Eden explores archaeological sites, biblical and ancestral narratives from around the world. Probing military intelligence, ancient indigenous knowledge, and sources close to prime ministers and presidents, Paul asks, what are the signs that our civilization may be on the cusp of a whole new world of ET contact? Laura Eisenhower says The Invasion of Eden is a must-read book in these most critical times. Eric von Daniken adds, Paul Wallace is a brilliant author. I have full respect for him. The Invasion of Eden, in paperback on Amazon, April 9th.
Sometimes we compromise, we can't pay the rent on time. Everybody knows where we will be. I guess it's time to roll. We're going international. Just wanna be that classy kind of thief. I'm talking stacks of cash so high. You'll have to double check your eye.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network Newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the Strange News. String of strange alien egg-like pods pulled from lake in Oklahoma. Found in the McGee Creek Reservoir on the southeast edge of the Ouachita Mountain Range in Oklahoma, the objects, which seem to be strung together like some sort of alien egg sac, certainly attracted a fair amount of attention when images were recently shared online. Far from being the unhatched offspring of an alien creature, however, these slimy spheres are in fact made up of large numbers of simple aquatic invertebrates, known as zooids. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us. And for all the latest news, go to nightdreamstalkradio.com.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, Sir Michael Caine. Well, we are back with George. We're going to talk a little bit more about his movie career, TV career, and all that stuff. You know, again, I mean, you've been in such really interesting shows, like Country Girl and The Girl Rush.
Right. Well, I was an extra. In The Girl Rush, I was one of the dancers behind Russell and behind Gloria DeHaven. And in the Country Girl, I have a hard time remembering that one. I think I was just an extra in that. So those were early days. But I have to tell you, those early days were just so sweet, so beautiful. By the way, did you say you got your license when you were 12?
Yeah, I had my amateur license at 12, yes.
That sounds pretty unusual to me.
Well, my dad was an electronic engineer, and again, I thought it was perfectly normal to start building stuff where kids play with blocks and stuff. That I got the solder iron out, and I was trying to make things.
Wow, that's impressive, gosh.
And it hasn't stopped. Well, also, you actually, Richard, and you, Brenner?
Yes, I worked with you twice. Made 2 movies with you. He was great to work with. One was the first movie I made after Westside. It was called Flight from Ashia, with you and with Richard Widmark.
Yeah.
And so we made that in Japan. And then the next time I worked with you was a movie we made in Mexico called Kings of the Sun, where he played an American Indian and I played a Mayan priest, a Mayan prince. So I got to be around Yul a couple of times, and he was a really very, very interesting man. He was a very nice man. He was a wonderful photographer as well. So, but for me, because Yul was a huge star, and my first movie after Westside Story, where I got, I didn't know about billing. It didn't matter to me as long as I was working. So my billing for Westside Story is not impressive, and that doesn't matter to me at all. But the reason I'm telling you this story is because my next movie was after Westside, again, Flight from Ashia with you and with Richard Widmark, and I was billed above the title with them. So suddenly there's this very inexperienced me dealing with these 2 major experienced stars, and I'm sure I got a little nervous, but it was I thought Yul was great, and Richard Widmark was equally great in a very different kind of way. Really interesting man.
I got to ask you a question about Richard. I read stuff, in the old, movie magazines that my mom had, that he was kind of short, and they had to, make him look taller.
Oh, well, I never. He didn't look short to me. I would say he was average, but not short.
Okay.
He was not short. Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading an article, again, movie magazines in that time, weren't maybe as accurate, it's like going on to, the Mirror or some of these other publications. But they said some of the other actors were taller, and they had to dig a little trench and have them walk in a trench, to even out the size.
Well, I've heard that story about Alan Ladd. I guess we've heard that one. And I've also heard that about Gene Kelly. I don't know if it's true or not, but certainly it was not true of Richard Widmark.
Interesting. And then in 1963, The Kings of the Sun. What was that about?
Well, let's see. I played a Mayan prince, and Yule was an American Indian. And it's the story of the Mayans being forced out of their land by a different kind of army, and our struggle to survive. It was directed by Lee J. Thompson, a really wonderful director, and it was to me. I remember to me, some years, well, not too long before, I was at a party, a small gathering, and Natalie was there, Natalie Wood, and just in chatting, and she knew that I was going to be making this movie, and she advised me. She said, "Don't do a costume picture." well, in The Kings of the Sun, it was a serious costume picture, but of course, once you're working, you forget all that stuff and just do what you're supposed to do. But so my first reaction to I wasn't happy about some of the costumes, but then you just had to get used to it because they were appropriate. But anyway, so I just thought it was a costume picture, and but not a great movie, but an important, good movie at the time. But it's for entertainment more than it's what it actually has to say.
It was a good movie, but another one I really liked, Mona Lisa Has Been Stolen, and that was in 1965. I loved working on that movie. I really loved it. We filmed in Italy, and we had a wonderful French director, Michel Deville, and his writing partner was Nina Contanès, who wrote it. I don't know if you know this, I didn't know it at the time, but the Mona Lisa really was stolen from the Louvre in 1911, and it was missing for 3 years. But our movie, the theft of the Mona Lisa, was a caper kind of film, like the kind Audrey Hepburn made one with Peter O'Toole called How to Steal a Million, and so it was a movie made just for fun. It was entertainment, not a serious movie, but fun, quite an enjoyable movie for an audience. Now, what happened to that movie? It was an Italian producer, and when all the filming was done, instead of letting Michel Deville edit the film, the Italian producer decided he would do it. Uh-oh.
And right. He didn't do a good job, and it took a very long time for different people to collect the pieces of this film and try to put it back together. But even with that's a serious problem. But I think it's very beautiful to look at. It's beautifully photographed, and Marina Vladi, who's the leading lady, and is an incredibly beautiful woman and also a very talented actress. She was Russian, living in France. But I really loved working on that movie, and knowing the editing mistakes, I'll say, that the producer made, I remember the experience so fondly that I have no trouble looking at it. It's a lovely, kind of a sweet caper film, but again, so beautifully photographed. It's very nice to look at, I think. Yeah.
It is. And then you did a lot in TV too. In 1968, you appeared on the Carol Burnett Show.
Oh God, Carol. Well, I guess you know that everybody loves Carol, as they should. She's just the best. She's just the best. Yes, I was playing Caesar's Palace at that time, and in my act, I guess, my portion of the evening, I'm Greek, so we did a Greek dance, me and my dancers, and Carol's producers saw the show and invited me onto their show to do the Greek dance, and there were wonderful dancers on the Carol Burnett show. So because there were more dancers, that number got expanded and made bigger just because there were more people, and it was really very well done on the Carol Burnett show by the people who worked on that show. Ernie Platt was a famous choreographer, especially because he did all the Carol Burnett shows. But I'm going on and on but my point is, they turned that Greek number into something bigger and better than we could ever have done just on stage.
Oh, yeah. And then you did the Jackie Gleason show. And one of my favorite shows was Medical Center. I really like that. And then from Medical Center, you were on Hawaii Five-0. And I got to ask you a question. From Medical Center to Hawaii Five-0, how did you get on the Partridge Family?
Okay. My manager at that time was a woman whose name was Ruth Ahrens, and she represented Shirley Jones. And of course, when David Cassidy came along, she represented David too. So Ruth was not in control, but she managed two of the very important stars on the Partridge Family. So I guess just because of our business connections, when that role came up, they decided to use me. And I think that was the last episode of the Partridge Family. But you know, I can go on and on about how nice people are to work with. But Shirley Jones is one of the sweetest people on the planet. I got to know Shirley pretty well when she was married to Jack Cassidy as well. And Ryan, her youngest, who's now, I'm not sure how old he is, but he's well into his 40s, is a good friend. So we were very, very close socially together, having dinner, all of us at Shirley's house and so on. So I guess it just made sense in some ways for me to play that role. And I was glad I did. I really liked doing it. And it was kind of a departure for me because with Westside, the people really think in not very original ways. In Westside, because I played Hispanic and because it's a music, because we dance, the general thinking about me for episodic television was a Hispanic or a dancer or something related to that. So the Partridge Family was a departure for that kind of thinking, and I really appreciate it for that. And I played for Shirley's love interest on that show. Anyway, it was a ball. It really was awfully, and again, a beautifully done show.
Okay, now, our time is going by real fast, so I want to just tell the listeners some of the shows you're on, and then we're going to talk about what got you into jewelry. He was also in Thriller, the New Adventures of Wonder Woman, Return to Fantasy Island, Chips, Matt Houston, which was another one of my great shows I used to enjoy, One Life to Live, Poor Little Rich Girls, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, Helltown, Dallas, which is the all-time TV show, Santa Barbara, Murder, She Wrote, and just on and on and on. Last of the Summer Wine. I tell you, you've done some really great shows.
Yeah, so some of that was for British television as well. But I don't want to take it too. I keep talking too much. But the shows, I loved Dallas because Barbara Carrera was so great to work with. And two of my favorite shows were, in fact, Medical Center and Hawaii Five-0 because they were so well produced and so well written.
Yeah, well, Murder, She Wrote.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Murder, She Wrote. One of my friends wrote some of the episodes for that. So that.
Well, everybody wanted to do Murder, She Wrote, not just because it was a good show, but because everybody loved and respected Angela Lansbury.
Oh yeah.
So she was and I felt the same way. I really admired her, not just for work, but as a person. She was a lovely, lovely woman.
As she was. Now, you had two songs. It broke the 100. You want to tell the listeners what songs they were?
Oh, God, you'll have to help me. I don't remember that.
I don't remember the names, but I know you had two. I remember that much.
Okay, well, thank you for... Yeah, because, oh, God, recording was such a ball. I loved it so much, yeah.
Oh yeah. So you gone from dancing, acting, and you love singing, but from all those, George, you got into doing jewelry. What got you? What
Yeah.
got you into designing jewelry and making jewelry?
God, I honestly can't remember how I somehow. I honestly don't have an answer to that question because I kind of don't remember. But I got into it enough to go to jewelry classes and to actually, learn physically how to solder silver and then to physically make pieces. So taking classes was a great incentive. And also, I remember the instructor telling us, because we were all beginning in jewelry, to please don't use gold, just use silver. Don't waste your money on gold until you know what you're doing. So, and because of that, I fell in love with silver. Everything I've made, I've always made in silver because I love the reflective quality of silvers. I find it really beautiful. But I'm glad that I accidentally found and fell in love with making jewelry because it was, I guess all of us, no matter what area of life we're creative in, one area blends very much into another. But sometimes I think, for example, as an actor in a movie or on stage, really, everything we do is for the audience. We want to please the audience. That's really one of our strong incentives. And in designing jewelry, I found that the thing that was important to me was hopefully creating something for an audience and something that somebody else would like. So in making things, in designing things, I always pretty much had an audience in mind. But it's so beautifully created in a very different way, but nevertheless creative, and I think that's what I loved about it.
I mean, to learn to master making, especially sterling silver, how many hours would you spend a day, designing stuff? And then how did you do it? Did you draw it out and then I'm going to make it, or did you make it?
Well, so sometimes I drew things up. I started different things in different ways. Sometimes I started with a sketch, and sometimes I actually started with the metal itself. Other times I used wax to create a shape and so on. And here at the house I have a freestanding garage that I used as a studio. So I was working. I was like a 9 to 5. I was working all day in the studio, and I loved it. When you love what you're doing, the time really flies. It really flies.
Oh, it does. I mentioned before we went on the air, we had Tony Dow, the late actor, producer, director, and he was into making art objects and stuff like that. And and that was, his later years. He said that was his passion. He would go out in his shop and he would create stuff, artwork.
Yeah, and it becomes a passion. That's such a great word because things it's too easy to look at something and not recognize that it's a passion, but it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, to be creative too. You don't have somebody telling you what to do. You don't have to read a script. Yeah. You're doing it on your own.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it starts with you and it ends with you. And when you do create something that I didn't like everything I made, but some pieces I liked more than others. But it was so gratifying to actually hold it in my hands. That was the thing that was so amazing to me, because of the piece of glue. It was a physical thing, and I could hold it in my hands and look at it. But I don't know, it really, I loved it quite a lot.
Do you still tinker around doing jewelry, making anything?
Ask me that again. I'm sorry.
Oh, do you still design and make jewelry?
Yes, I've slowed down a little because when I first started, I ended up making I had too much of an inventory, I'll say. Not too long after I started, but after a while after I really acquainted myself with the jewelry department and all the jewelry stores and everything in downtown Los Angeles, the manufacturers and so on. And a Japanese distributor saw my things and liked them. So I ended up having a distributor in Japan as well. So I have two manufacturers downtown, and I have a manufacturer in Thailand. It just takes you great places. It's also about people too. You're always in contact with people who are on the same page, I guess.
Well, again, when it comes to like art and stuff, because my other passion, besides this is photography. And,
yes.
and the late Leonard Nemoy, actually, I got to know him at one point in my life. And he said, I want that picture I had. And it made me feel good. And then all of a sudden he said, I'm an avid photographer and a poet. And a lot of people didn't realize Leonard Nemoy was into the arts.
Yeah. When we were shooting the prologue in New York, we were in New York City out in vacated streets, and there was rubble on the streets and everything. And there was a photographer from Life magazine who was coming just to take as many pictures of it, anything he wanted to take a picture of. And I remember he pointed his camera at the ground and took a picture of just rocks, and I don't know what it was, but it was a beautiful picture because once it was framed, it was really interesting to look at, even though it was just rubble. My point is, photography is a highly creative thing as well. That's why we respond more to some pictures than we do others. It's a very creative and very. I'm putting it so badly, sorry. But the bottom line is, I think people sometimes don't, because they don't think of it that way, can't appreciate how creative the process photography is, and what a photographer sees and what he decides to put in the frame he sees through his lens. Because just that's so creative. It's great.
I wanted to be an artist and paint. But, nobody liked my stickmans. And when I was 5 years old, my grandmother, because I was always drawing pictures, I couldn't make any. If I drew a picture of a face, you wouldn't even know what it was. And my grandmother gave me a camera when I was 5 years old. It had film in it. And she says, go out and take pictures. And, a lot of people, they go out and take pictures. They come back and that's what they have. Some people have the talent. Just like an artist with a brush or with your jewelry, they take a picture and it tells a story, and it just draws you into it. It's and a lot of people don't realize it's art.
Yeah, and also because you can look at a photograph and you can feel something. It can get emotional as well. At least it does for me, and that's why I'm with you. And your listener is great that you got a camera when you were 5.
Oh yeah, that was the biggest mistake my grandmother ever gave me, because my parents all the way through, junior high, grade school, high school, junior high school, I was out taking pictures all the time. That was my passion, and then that and talking, you couldn't shut me up. Well, again, you had these songs and stuff like that. How did it feel to go into the recording studio and come out with a masterpiece of a song that was very popular?
Well, I'll tell you, I love recording sessions so much. I recorded at Capitol in Studio A, like one of the best recording studios in the world. And I was working with my producer had worked with Peggy Lee, so I was really working with some really wonderful people. But one of I can remember, and I was in the room with the musicians. In those days, people decided to have to record it. They just cut a singer come later and lay down the vocal. But in those days, I was in the room with the orchestra during every take. What was so wonderful to listen to, the conductor would first rehearse the strings, then the woodwinds, then and break it down section by section. And when he had rehearsed all the sections, then they'd all come and do it together, and it was just, you got goosebumps every time. It was so beautiful. And then music, I really loved singing so much, and I can say it now, but I had kind of a nice natural voice, so I wasn't ashamed to make a sound. I felt good making a sound because I thought I made a pretty good one. So it was enjoyable that way. I guess I had a little more confidence in that department because then you play back and you can hear what you've done.
Yeah, and you like I said, from dancing to movies, TV shows, acting, and music, you've accomplished a lot. And
Well, thank you for bringing it to mind, because I don't think of it every day by any stretch of the imagination. And I really appreciate this conversation with you, because it's nice when you're reminded of things that have meant a lot to you. It's very nice.
Well, people have been excited about you being on the show tonight, because I posted up on my media, like on X and all these other platforms. And I got so many emails and messages from people. They just were excited to have you on. And again.
Wow. That's so nice. Thank you for telling me that. That's so nice to hear that. Yeah. Great.
Now, is there, because we got like about 2.5 minutes, is there anything you want to say to the listeners out there? Anybody who wants to get into dancing, acting, or even jewelry making, is there anything you want to say, George?
Well, I think in any field, study, work, learn your craft. An actor should be working anywhere they can as an actor, in the theater, small theater, workshops, and in classes to actually learn the craft, so that when you have the opportunity and you have work, you're prepared. The same thing in any field with painting. The more you do it, the more you'll find your way. And also there are classes in every field where we can always learn from experts and people who know more than us. So to never stop learning and to always try to do more.
Well, that's great advice, George. George, I want to thank you to take time in your busy life to come on the show, and I really do appreciate it so very much.
Well, listen, I thank you for letting me be on your show, because you've made my day, and I've really had a nice time.
Well, keep me in mind. Maybe we can bring you on again in a few months, and we can talk a little bit more about stuff.
Okay, and anytime. Thank you so much. You've been great.
George, you have a great weekend, will you?
Yeah, I will, and you do the same. Thank you so much.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
Okay.
Night. Well, what are we going to be talking about next here, JC? I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, I couldn't find my mouse.
I was wondering what was going on there.
It disappeared when it come back. But anyway, we're going to be talking about nukes with Professor Steve Starr.
Now, we're going to talk about nuclear war. What would happen? Are you, what are you going to do? That is the scary part, because, we talked about it the other night. We had the Cold War where people were taught to go underneath, like it's going to help, go under your table. Okay, that's good. Go in the basement and have your house fall down on you. Or as Ronald Reagan said, well, dig a hole 6 feet deep, get a door, put above it, and put 3 feet of dirt on it to protect you against radiation. Nah, that's not it. They're just saying, hey, that's self-burying yourself. We're going to be right back here in a few minutes. We're going to take about a 4-minute break, and then we're going to have Stephen Starr, Professor Stephen Starr, talking about nuclear war. So stay tuned. You're listening to, Night Dreams Talk Radio, naturally.
first days, like the lava. I try to keep you in my heart, like the first days, like the moment. This is all I've got, this loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. This is all I've got, this loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love. With the high words, with the strange looks. Once you're broken, once you lived in. With the high words, with the strange looks. Once you're broken, once you lived in. This is all I've got, this loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. This is all I've got, this loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. World's largest standing lantern, constructed in China. A Chinese city broke the Guinness World Record for the largest standing lantern with a massive flower-shaped lantern. Guinness World Records announced the peony-shaped lantern made for the 2024 Spring Festival in the Year of the Dragon at Luoyang's Peony Pavilion measures 147 feet and 8.83 inches long, 81 feet and 5.95 inches tall, and 64 feet and 7.59 inches wide. That is one big lantern. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us. And for all the latest news, go to nightdreamstalkradio.com. Coming to you live from Night Dreams Talk Radio, it's Gary Anderson with the stories that will rock your world.
My neighbor tried to get me fired on Friday.
Stories that make perfect sense.
My Hollywood celebrity neighbor threatened me about a month ago that he would expose me because he investigator to dig into my background.
Important stories that are easy to follow.
And if I didn't stop the movie from being released, he would expose me.
So strap yourself in and get ready, because Gary is going to get to the bottom of it, no matter how long it takes.
And since they can't stop the movie from dropping, which is going to expose him...
Sorry, we've run out of time for this intro, so let's just do this. Once again, the Sultan of the Story, Gary Anderson.
And we are back. And I'll tell you what, I love George. He was a very good interview of, again, a lot of people forget about some of these famous actors and actresses out there. And, without them, we wouldn't be involved with what we see on the screens now. But I'll tell you this, what has happened in the past versus the future, movies back then made you feel warm and fuzzy, and they were really, great. Nowadays, a lot of the stuff, I'll be honest with you, is trash. Well, who's our guest, JC?
Well, our guest is Stephen Starr, and he is the former director of the University of Missouri's Clinical Laboratory Science program, along with, he also teaches a class on the environmental health and social effects of nuclear weapons at the University of Missouri.
Well, Stephen, it's really great to have you back on. Have you been staying out of trouble?
Well, as best I can.
Well, that's all we can do. I was mentioning on my show the last couple of days, I'm really concerned. When I was in grade school, they taught us that we go like under a desk, go in your basement. Like, that's not going to do any good. Ronald Reagan, like I mentioned just before we went on break, had a little video which it was on and then they took it off TV. It was basically, if there was a nuclear war, dig a 6-foot hole. Take a door off of your house, put 3 feet of dirt on it, and then that might protect you. But would 3 feet be enough dirt on it to protect you, or is it a cheap way to bury people?
I think your second suggestion is probably closer to the truth. It depends what you mean by protect. If you're trying to protect yourself from the firestorm, which would be created by a nuclear detonation above a city, that's not going to work. Even if you're in a deep shelter, the air temperatures in the fire zone, which a Russian 800 kiloton weapon will create a massive nuclear firestorm that's about 90 to 150 square miles in its total surface area, and the air temperatures in that fire will be 400 to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So anything that's combustible will burn, and even if you're in a deep shelter, you probably would be cooked. And if you're not cooked, the oxygen would be used
Stephen,
up.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're getting some weird noise, like scratching noise or something. Is there a cable?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know. Let's see. Is this a little bit better?
Okay, I'm not hearing it now. But again, so here's the thing. The hypersonic missiles that Russia and China is like really cranking out. And with the capability, we can't shoot it down, supposedly. I mean...
No, you're correct. They're not. We can't shoot them down.
Okay, I live approximately 13 miles away from Beymer. I live about, as a crow fly, about 6-7 miles from Bremerton Naval Base. And those would be, I think, a target in a nuclear war. I would think Bangor certainly would be.
Yes, the primary targets are going to be the nuclear weapon systems and the command and control. So you would probably be targeted. That area would be hit with several nuclear weapons at the very least. So you wouldn't make it.
Would I be able to see the flash and put suntan lotion on?
Well, if you're beneath the fireball, you'd be vaporized, basically. Hiroshima, when the nuclear weapon detonated over the city of Hiroshima, when the U.S. dropped the atomic bomb there at the end of World War II, people beneath the fireball were just turned into a gas that left shadows on the sidewalk. But that was about a 4 to 5 square mile fire zone. You would be in a fire zone that would be probably 150 to 200 square miles at least.
So you're talking about in a state taking up quite a bit of a state of the encounter of a detonation of one.
Right. Well, there's going to be the thermal flash. It's like a piece of the sun when a nuclear weapon goes off. It's not, we talk about the explosive power of it, but that's just sort of a way to equate it to what a high explosive would do. And that would be like in the hundreds of thousands of tons of explosive for a strategic nuclear weapon. But it's more than just an explosion. It's like the sun appearing above the surface of the earth, and anything that's within a radius of, say, with a strategic weapon, 9 miles in all directions would be anything flammable will catch on fire. And then in a matter of a few minutes, all those fires will coalesce into a gigantic firestorm with winds blowing in towards the center of the fire at hundreds of miles an hour. It would be enough to uproot trees. So it's almost hard to imagine, but that it's nothing we've really experienced before.
Well, put it this way. I was out in my yard, and I would say I lived 10 miles away from one of those hits. How long would I have after it hit?
Well, the blast wave would get to you in a matter of several minutes, and that blast wave would still be enough to, blow out the windows in your house. But if you're directly exposed to the fireball, you would, at that distance, you would probably suffer second-degree burns all over any part of your body that was exposed. If you're a little bit closer, maybe like 9 miles, it'd be third-degree burns.
And how could I survive for a while if I was like 15, 20 miles away?
Yeah, if you're that distance, you would still be. If you looked at the flash, you'd probably be permanently blinded. But you would not be in the fire zone, and you would, so then if you're downwind from it, you're going to be getting massive fallout in a matter of 20 or 30 minutes. So that you would have to be shielded from that for probably several weeks before you'd be safe to go outside. But when you talk about a nuclear war, when you're talking about hundreds or thousands of those type of detonations occurring within a matter of an hour or so, because that's how long it takes for all these launch-ready weapons. It's 2 to 15 minutes for 1,000 warheads from the U.S. or Russia to hit the other side. And when you think about the effects of those firestorms, each firestorm will consume anything combustible in there, so you'll have a total of tens or hundreds of millions of tons of black carbon soot and smoke that will be created from these firestorms. And that will quickly rise into the stratosphere. And within a week, you'll get a global stratospheric smoke layer that's going to block, in the northern hemisphere, it'd be about 70% of the sunlight. So at noon, it would look like a full moon at midnight during the day. And you would have below freezing temperatures every day in central North America and central Eurasia for up to 3 years. It'd be too cold to grow crops for about 10 years. So you don't have to go ahead.
No, I was saying at that point, Stephen, survival looks like it'd be really scary. And would you want to survive?
Well, I think it's human nature to want to survive. I mean, if I had the choice, I would probably, if I saw a fallout coming towards me, I'd hide. But, realistically, and the thing is, I'm talking about the very worst case scenario. We don't know in a nuclear war if all these weapons would be detonated and used. There's a lot of different ideas about what could happen. But I think that survival would be very, I've just finished writing a book about electromagnetic pulse, and a single nuclear detonation high altitude above the U.S., it won't create blast or fire, but it will destroy our electric power grid. And so just one nuclear detonation could leave the U.S. without electricity for over a year. That would probably take about 90% of the population wouldn't be likely to survive that. So,
and I told people that on my show repeatedly, and I get all this hate mail from people saying, you're exaggerating. But look at it, all the people that are on life support, all the people are in the hospital, and again, like what happened with the toilet paper and COVID, people are fighting over frickin' toilet paper. Could you imagine if one was detonated above the United States or in Canada? Your cars aren't going to run unless you got a 57 Etzel. And the other problem is food isn't going to be going into the warehouse. From the warehouse, it's not going to go in the grocery store. The stores will be sold out of anything that you could eat within a matter of an hour or two. And then what's
Right.
going to happen? You're going to have riots. You're going to have looting. You're going to have people, like Mad Max scenario going on.
Yeah, it'd be chaos. But think about everything that requires electricity. I mean, your lights, your refrigeration, you would have no running water. The sanitation systems wouldn't work. None of the communication systems would work. Transportation systems wouldn't work. You couldn't pump or deliver fuel. Your banking systems wouldn't work. Just about everything, every aspect of the critical national infrastructure would be impacted. And you can detonate a nuclear weapon over the Yucatan Peninsula and destroy the grid. We can protect the grid, by the way. It's, that's one of the things that I wrote my book, hoping that you could get some action at the political level to protect the grid. We could be done for a fraction of what we spend on national defense every year, but it's just two bills have been defeated trying to go through Congress for that purpose.
Well, you know what? They're like playing craps with our human life. Because, again, to shore up our grid is not that much of what we do spend. What we donate to keep the war going on in Ukraine would shore up our
Exactly.
grid. And that, I think, should be our number one priority. It's just that, life as we know it was history. And, like I was mentioning, most people won't survive because the first year, I think after probably 3 months, you're going to find a huge drop in population. From the standpoint, they're going to be starving to death. They don't, you're not going to be able to grow you can grow, but most people don't know how to do that. Most people don't even know how to collect water. And again, you're going to go flush your toilet. Your toilet isn't going to work. Nothing's going to work.
That's right. It would be like suddenly flipping a switch, and it'd almost be like in the Middle Ages. Like you say, we've lost all those skills that people had in the 19th century before we had electricity. There were a lot of communities that had all sorts of things going for them without, electric power grid, but that's not the case these days. And even the people that are preppers are probably not totally prepared for what it would be like to live without electricity for a year or longer.
How about these people are going to these old military bases and converting those into shelters? I would think that those would still be targeted. So I don't think they could, I was reading this one article where the guys spent $1 million to create his place in case there's a nuclear war. I don't even think that would survive, would it?
Yeah, I don't know. The Russians probably wouldn't target empty silos like that. But the thing is, I don't know, how long is he going to plan on staying down there? If you got enough food for a couple of years, it might, I don't know. I just think that's kind of an extreme, and I that's not really a solution. But it does show that people are, very concerned about all these dangers that face us. If you look at the news right now, I mean, the things going on over in Ukraine are really pretty frightening, I think, with the French are talking about sending troops in there, and the Russians have said, all red lines are crossed. If that happens, they'll take out the French troops, and then we have a direct military conflict with NATO and Russia.
Well, that's the scary part. What they're saying, Putin just said again, his speech here last week, if any NATO troops go into the Ukraine, then it's all off. The gloves are off. That he will launch nuclear.
Well, what I don't understand is that the leaders, even in Europe, France has its own nuclear arsenal, but why would you want to provoke a direct military conflict with Russia? The French army is a joke compared to what the Russians have. There's absolutely no way they're going to go into Ukraine and make any difference at all. And
I'm going to be honest with you, Stephen. I'm at the age, I remember Vietnam very well. And before the American troops got in Vietnam, French were there for 15 years. And after 15 years, it almost bankrupted France, and they didn't accomplish anything, and they withdrew.
Yeah, there's lots of bad jokes about, you could buy a used French rifle, it's dropped once and never fired. But, the bottom line is, for the entire history of the Cold War and the nuclear arms race, you can go back 70 years. What's different now is this is the first time that, Russia, the United States or Russia, the Soviet Union were never attacked. It was always proxy wars in other places. But right now, Russia is being attacked on a daily basis. They had to evacuate a city of 300,000 people, Belgorod, because it's just shelled every day. Their oil refineries are being attacked hundreds of miles inside of Russia. Their drones were being used to attack the strategic air base in Russia. And then, right now there's there's a massive terrorist attack in Moscow.
Oh, yeah.
So, the Russian people are becoming infuriated by this. It's not, and I think political leaders are driven by, what their constituency does. And this is really a very dangerous situation.
Well, yeah, again, that's the scary part, what is going on with Russia. But then, on the other hand, Russia has no problem sending, and taking out, civilian areas of the Ukraine. The whole point is the war, this is my view, they don't have the troops anymore, Ukraine, to defend themselves, rather not even to be offensive anymore. I was reading statistics that, their young people are all dead. And they got people in their 60s, late 60s, now fighting. I mean,
right.
They can't continue on. Even we can give them another 1.5 million artillery shells. But all it's going to do is prolong, and more death is going to happen.
Well, they say truth is the first casualty in war. And for the last couple of years, we've been getting a lot of really kind of propaganda. I mean, both sides put out propaganda, but we heard for a long time that Russia had lost half its army and Russia was running out of missiles and munitions. And well, that's not what the story is now. And I shudder at what's happened. I read that there's been more than 1 million killed and wounded in the Ukrainian army. And those weren't the figures we were getting for a long time. But as you say, the result is that there's not enough people to replace those getting killed. I think daily casualty figures are 1,000 a day right now for Ukraine. It's a terrible situation. And if they're not going to win the war, why prolong it? It's time to negotiate rather than double down and send in F-16s and Taurus missiles that could hit deeper into Russia. That's just going to make things worse.
Well, I do think it, and again, this is only my thought from reading the news constantly, and I don't read just the news. It's coming out in our country. I go BBC, I go all these different ones because they got different approaches to what's going on. But you can only back a leader so far in a corner before they like a snake, they're going to strike.
Well, as you mentioned, we cannot defend against Russian hypersonic weapons. And so we do not want to get into a situation where they might be firing those at the United States. I mean, if we can't shoot them down, we have to be honest about that. We can't pretend like we can defend against these things. So don't get into a war with Russia. It's just that simple.
Well, it's not a win-win situation for us because regardless, they might hit us first by, 20, 30 minutes, but we're still going to hit them, and the population there and the population worldwide, as we know it, will be pretty much over. We're going to go back to the Stone Age.
Well, it would be nice if we could devote some of these resources to all our social problems we have here at home. There's no shortage of things. You look around and there's so many people that are living out in the streets, and our infrastructure is kind of crumbling. We don't need to keep the $112 billion we sent to Ukraine is more than the total annual state budgets for 20 states in the United States, the total expenditures. So when you think about what you could do with that money at home, it's foolish in the extreme to be essentially giving it away for a war that, thousands of miles away from the United States. It's not threatening us. It's on Russian border, though. So it's a threat. The Russians see it as an existential threat, and they're not going to back down.
No, they're not. And I think I'm really, honestly, I'm not a Putin lover. I'm going to say that right now. I despise
I'm not
the guy.
either. I don't,
But he's been very
fan of
tolerant.
Putin.
He has. I mean, a lot of leaders would have done something by now.
Well, the thing is, there's people that think that if we just get rid of Putin, things will be better. But you're right. If whoever would replace him is likely to be more militaristic. Medvedev, who was before Putin, he was the president. If you listen to what he says every day, he's ready to drop bombs and hit NATO capitals in Europe with nuclear weapons. So the public opinion is inflamed in Russia with what's going on there, and we just don't need to sponsor attacks on Russian soil. We need to negotiate. We need to say, okay, we lost the war. Let's say what we can of Ukraine and try to. We're not going to be friends with Russia for a long time, but we just have to avoid a direct military conflict with them.
And I'm not going to mention the person's name, but there's somebody, I can end the war in Ukraine in 20 minutes.
Well, I know who you're talking about.
I'm talking about my Aunt Bertha at the nudist camp. That's who I'm talking about.
Well, good. Well, if she had the power to stop all the transfers of money and weapons, then the war will. That's what we're at now. That's the desperation to get another $61 billion to Ukraine is because that money's for when it's paying all the salaries in the Ukrainian government.
Oh, wait a minute! I got to jump in here. The president of Ukraine just bought like 6 months ago and took delivery on a $300 million yacht.
Oh, that poor guy.
I wonder where he got the money for that yacht.
Well, they haven't audited any of the money that we sent over there. And it's not the first time. We were sending pallet loads of $100 bills over to Iraq that disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, but what about human needs here in the United States? That's what I mean, I know we have to defend ourselves, but it's just insane and we're running up $1 trillion in debt every 100 days. And the national debt goes up $1 trillion. And that's not going to last very long before our currency isn't worth a damn.
Well, here's the other problem is China is not renewing a lot of their bonds. So they're actually catching them back. What's going to happen to we're just like kiting money back and forth.
Right.
And
the Federal Reserve is buying all the Treasury notes because nobody else wants to buy them.
Yeah,
but that's a Ponzi scheme. I mean, you can't do that.
Me and you would be in prison for the rest of our life if we did it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Biden today got on the news, right? And I said this earlier before I brought you on. You know what he said? He was talking about, that they passed the Congress, the $1.2 trillion. Now it was up to the Senate, and he's hoping that they pass it as soon as it's possible. And he said, I want to explain to the population, it's like if you write a check, it's for like paying stuff that you bought. Now, he worded it wrong. This is supposed to be the $1.2 trillion, right, for the future, for starting to keep the government going and all this, going. But he kind of said it's like for the past. So if you really think about it, that $1.2 trillion wouldn't even cover anything.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, all the economic statistics that come out of the government, I disregard them because they're usually they rig all the formulas to make things look better than they really are. Our inflation's a lot higher than what they say it is. All you got to do is go to the grocery store and find out what things cost.
I put it this way. We have a family of 5 living in my house. It's $60 to $70 a day for food.
Right.
And that's crazy. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would spend $25 for the 4 of us a week. That's how much inflation.
We go to the grocery store. You could fill up a grocery cart for $100. Now you're lucky if you get that much in a grocery bag.
Oh yeah, and that's what the problem is. And they wanted to cut Social Security, and bump the age up because they said it's going broke. I wonder why.
Well, there's everywhere you look, there's some kind of problem. I think that there's so much corruption in the federal government that we're really the general population is just their needs are being ignored, and the people that are in the federal government they're more preoccupied with the ones that are elected. They're always trying to get more campaign donations so they can win the next election, and then you got the professional bureaucrats that are there forever, and I guess you can call them the deep state or whatever you want, but those are the people that really seem to cause the most problems. I don't know who's really running the country anymore. Russia says the same thing. They say, well, we're not sure who we're negotiating with.
Well, it's really scary. Now, another thing, I've been getting junk mail like, well, do you want to buy iodine pills?
Right.
Okay, that died for the past year. Now all of a sudden it's popping up on the internet. You go on Amazon, they're pushing iodine pills. Is that going to help anybody seriously?
Well, iodine is for the one radioactive element. Radioactive iodine it gets into your thyroid gland and it concentrates there. So when they did the fallout, we created all the fallout from the atmospheric nuclear weapons test that they did in Nevada, starting in 1950 or 51. The whole United States got bathed in fallout, and it fallout in the grass. The cows would eat the grass, and it would concentrate in the milk, and the kids really got hammered from it. So that if you take iodine ahead of time, you can block the uptake of the radioactive iodine, but it doesn't do much good for all the other radioactive fallout that would happen if you're actually having nuclear detonations, all over the place.
That's scary. Now, Stephen, we need to take this little break about 2 minutes long, and we'll come back and maybe take one or two calls from out there if somebody wants to ask you anything about nuclear war, what a nuclear bomb could do. Well, let's take that. So we'll be back with Stephen. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Sometimes we compromise, we can't pay the rent on time. Everybody knows where we will be. I guess it's time to roll. We're going international. Just wanna be that classy kind of thief. I'm talking stacks of cash so high. You'll have to double check your eyes. We're getting better every time, like silent shadows in the night.
Now, for all of you out there who need to know a little bit more about a little bit less, here he is.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am not Boris Badenov, celebrity spokesperson for Westside Health Food Stores. Choice of fearless leader. No. He loves it. Anyway, to bring you a younger feel to your life, we have great health foods made with many chemicals we can't pronounce, only banned in California.
Oh, just like you, darling. Always trying to help others get a little more pain.
What can I say? I'm a nice guy. Anyway, this week at Westside Health Food Stores, we have a snack to give you the energy you need.
Boris, you have great idea.
Our deal of the week, Sasquatch foreskins, prepared by regal rabbis. Who knew Bigfoot was Jewish?
Well, my real name is Sasquatch Bigfootstein.
Low in calories, low in carbs. This is one low-hanging fruit snack. Limited to one bag because how many you think we got? Get that special feeling with Sasquatch foreskins. Oh, very good, you love it. Available now at Westside Health Food Stores.
Deep in the Amazon jungle, one man.
Hi, I'm Stan Gordon. Check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Dog.
Yeah, let me finish. One man.
Hi, I'm Mark Muncy. Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, do you mind? One man, naked and afraid. You and me both, sister. One man, Gary the Big Guy. No boats, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Hey, any more and you'll have to pay a royalty.
Okay, that's it.
Hit it.
From the summer vacation studios deep in the Amazon jungle, from that tree right there. See at the top, he's swinging.
I'm losing my mind.
Twice? All right. Coming to you live, for now, on Night Dreams Talk Radio, naked and afraid, Gary the Big Guy Anderson.
And we are back. JC, I'm out of my Bigfoot foreskins. I got to order some more from that health food store.
Yeah, be careful because, you've seen the commercials.
I know, but once you eat one, you want to keep going back. Well, Stephen, we are back. And, again, I'm really, at my age, I shouldn't have to go to bed and worry about if I'm going to wake up in the morning.
Well, you shouldn't have to worry about it because of a nuclear war. There's other things you can worry about besides that.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah, again, it seems like it's escalating. We have Canada that is going to supply a whole bunch of missiles that have the capability of going into Moscow. Even that is, I don't know if you've seen that. That is really scary.
We've tried to maintain this fiction for a long time that we're not at war with Russia. It's like the proxy war. Ukraine is at war with Russia, but we're just helping them. But for the last 2 years, all the targeting that's been done has been done because the U.S. provides aerial and satellite reconnaissance to Ukraine 24/7. So if the drone gets sent to hit Moscow, it'll be moving around all the air defense systems before it gets there, and we tell it how to do it. But now, like I said earlier, if you start hitting Russia with weapons, what it's been doing regularly now, whether it's oil refineries or Air Force bases or civilian targets, what if it was the United States? What if we were having to evacuate a city on our border because Russia was supplying Canada with weapons? It was, we have to look at it from the Russian point of view, and that's war. And the Russians are going to start retaliating. I think they're going to hit the political people in Kiev now after what happened in Moscow today. So we'll see, but it's not a good thing.
And on top of the drones and stuff taking out a lot of ships lately in the Black Sea fleet too.
Right. And, it's been admitted, the German Chancellor Scholz admitted that these high-tech weapon systems are being operated by, the U.S. Military operates the HIMARS and the Patriot missile systems. The French operate their Caesar systems and the British program the Storm Shadow missiles, and then they use our aerial surveillance to hit the target. So, from the Russian point of view, we are fighting them, and that's dangerous. It really is dangerous.
Oh, well, yeah, it's like saying, "Oh, hey, I didn't give the guy a gun and your address to go, assassinate your husband." Yeah, that's what's going on. I think we got a caller. Who do we have out there?
This is Tom.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, sir. I have a question for your guest.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is, back in the 80s, I was in a military intelligence unit, and this is back then, so I know things have probably changed, but what the doctrine they were teaching us back then was that considering the nukes that they had then versus what they have now, the casualty rate from ground zero was 10 miles out, 100% casualties, 20 miles out, 90%, 30 miles out, 80%, et cetera, et cetera. Is that basically still, as far as you're concerned, a factual doctrine?
Right. We don't have quite as many multi-megaton weapons as we did back in the 70s and 80s, but I think for the most part, you're right. The Russians have about 300, 800 kiloton weapons that are launch ready that can be launched in 2 to 15 minutes, and that'll create a firestorm, 150 square miles surface area. So that goes out about 9 or 10 miles. That's 100% casualties. So I think you're pretty close to the truth.
Okay. And my other question is, how many of our friends across the pond, how many, if you may not have this information, how many of their nukes are neutron? I remember that was one of the things that it's kind of a false to fact scenario that they were giving to us, was that, well, we can use neutron nukes because that'll leave their infrastructure intact, and the radiation will be gone within 72 hours. I think that's a false presumption, but I just wanted your read on that.
Well, those are specialized weapons, and I'm sure that both sides have them for certain certain scenarios. But I think for the most part, they're thermonuclear weapons. The Russian subs have anywhere like a 90 kiloton warhead. It's pretty standard. Ours are like 100 to 475 for the larger ones. If you want to neutralize the society, the simplest way to do it is with a EMP. The Chinese and Russian military textbooks describe super EMP weapons, and they can induce up to, it's 200,000 volts per meter. My book uses a 50,000 volt per meter, which is what's the unclassified information. But even with that, you can take out the entire grid and also most of the critical national infrastructure, because those will fry. The E1 component destroys all the solid state electronics that are plugged into the grid. Will just get zapped. So if you want to have a way to destroy a society without destroying all the infrastructure, that's the simplest way to do it.
Understood. Well, I thank you for that. I appreciate what you're saying, and I hope that the people that have been sending Gary hate mail realize that what you're saying is true and take that seriously.
Well, if those people and you, if you're interested in my book, it's called Nuclear High Altitude Electromagnetic Pulse. It's on Amazon, and you can look it up just by putting my name in there, Stephen with a V and Star with 2 R's. That'll bring up the book. You can get a Kindle version of it for $9.
Well, thank you, Tom, for your questions. They were really good.
You bet. Have a good night.
Okay. Well, that's the thing, too. We're worried about eventually, they're saying 2 years now, the latest statistics, that they're worried about China invading Taiwan. Now, again, couldn't they take out China instead of sending massive troops in and creating, a battlefront, just detonate over Taiwan?
I'm sure that's correct. And like I tried to say earlier, if you detonate a nuclear weapon, like say 100 miles up above the land, it doesn't create any blast or fire effects, but it'll just create this massive electromagnetic pulse. In a medium distribution power line, you'll get 2 million volts and 5 to 10,000 amps. It'll go right into that. It's induced into the line, and anything that's not shielded, that's plugged into the grid, that is solid state electronics, gets fried.
Now, let's say I have my transistor radio sitting on my desk. Is it going to be fried too?
Well, I tell you what, in an area about the size of Texas, you don't even have to. Doesn't even have to be plugged in. Anything like an extension cord or a cord coming for a power cord coming out of the back of something, or the antenna on your radio, you'll get like 5 to 10,000 volts induced into that by the E1. So it's really hard to keep the EMP out of military vehicles. If you look at the way they're designed, you have to put a special tape around the doors and the windows. It has to be super tight to keep EMP out. It comes up through the ground. So yeah, it's not a simple thing to protect from.
And it's scary. I had a guy on my show, a couple years ago, a survivalist, and he was saying to me, well, you just get a garbage can and put your electronics into it and tape it up. But then I started thinking, well, yeah, okay, I put my electronics in there, but what good is it going to do? I'm not going to get on the internet. I'm not going to listen to my favorite radio show, Night Dreams Talk Radio. What am I going to do? What good is that electronics going to do?
Well, there is a company called EMP Shield that makes a device that it's also a lightning, it's a surge protector, but it is tested to military grade specifications. And I actually, if you have a solar system, you can protect that in your battery bank. If you're really self-sufficient and you got all that, you can probably, hopefully, if you're not directly under nuclear detonation, you could probably protect a lot of your stuff with those. But that's the only thing I know of that might protect you from it.
Well, again, too, would I be safe to go up to the mountains? Because but again, how are you going to get there? Because if you had a half an hour warning, you're not going to go anywhere. It's going to be gridlocked. How are you going to get away?
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, there's no simple solution. You probably better be where you're going to be away from everything before something like that happens. And even then, you have to figure out, you have to have a water source, for example. If your electricity doesn't work, you can actually put a hand pump on top of a well casing and pump water out of it that way. But when society loses the grid and all that, it just creates problems that most people have never even dreamed of.
Well, like flushing your toilet in your apartment. Try doing that.
Yeah, the toilets will actually back up after a while because the whole water system will fail, and it's unbelievable. Nothing you have will work.
Well, again, too, because you teach all this stuff. I mean, people are being educated, but again, they're not being educated because we're not being told what could really happen. And that's the scary part. They, and FEMA and all that, you think they could really help if something really
Well, I think they've
happened?
done worse than not. They've actually put out a lot of videos. There was an emergency preparedness video that New York City put out, the state of New York. And they talk about a 10 kiloton detonation, like that would be what would happen in a nuclear war. Which that could theoretically be from a terrorist, but that's not what we're looking at right now. But they had this lady there, and she goes, "Well, you just get inside, and stay tuned. Those are the three things you're supposed to do."
Yeah, and tape your windows too, and all that, right?
Yeah, well, they acted like if you just got inside, then you'd probably be okay, and you'd listen for instructions. But somehow it escapes the fact that there wouldn't be a grid and there'd be a firestorm. I mean, if New York City gets hit, you just don't want to be in New York City because they target things. They don't just put one warhead on big targets. They have 5-10 warheads. So, well, Russia and the U.S. each have 1,000 strategic weapons they can launch in 2 to 15 minutes, and then they have another 3,000 or 4,000 they can launch within the next hour. So maybe they won't do it, but it's. But we've been trying to ignore this problem for a long time, and people don't. It's not taught in the schools. My students come into my classes and they don't know anything about it, and they're smart, but it hasn't been taught in the schools for 20 or 30 years. And I think it's deliberate. I don't think they want people to, interfere with their policy.
Well, again, what can you do? You like when I was in grade school, like I said earlier, they told you to go underneath your desk. Oh, if you have a house with a basement, go in your basement. But you know what is really interesting? Fallout shelters. You go buy these fallout shelters. They put them like 6 feet, 10 feet underground in your house. And you can get them as low as like 50,000 to, whatever. And their sales have gone way up in the past 2 years.
Well, it's true. I think people just see what's going on and they don't see any movement towards in the opposite direction. It's like what's happening in Ukraine. It's just a continual escalation. I don't think Biden's talked to Putin in the last 2 years. And, that's when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, at least, JFK was trying to communicate with, Khrushchev on the other side, just to try to, even though if it was like with a courier or, fax machine, but we don't have any effort at diplomacy right now.
And can you see the resentment they would have that we keep dumping money? And again, Congress got to the one point they didn't want to fund the budget because they didn't want the money to go to Ukraine. But I can see the people. You got to put a stop to it at some point. I mean, I want my grandkids to grow up to be like my age, and at this point, I'm really nervous. And people just.
Yeah, I think your listeners need to get on the phone and call up their representatives and say, look, we got to stop this. We have to stop this escalation. Because I don't see any movement in that direction from the Biden, the White House. They're not. It's just we're going to back them and they're going to win. And that's not the Russians don't agree with that. And the Russians are actually winning the war right now. They're comprehensively defeating Ukraine all across the line of contact. And like you said, Ukraine's run out of soldiers, they're run out of munitions, and it's industrial war. The Russians got ready for this war a long time before, probably 7 or 8 years ago, they started building up their capabilities to make artillery shells and missiles. I guess they anticipated it, but, that they've been telling NATO, you cannot move into Ukraine. And that was their one condition that even in 2 years ago when there was an attempt at a treaty in Ankara and Turkey, that's unacceptable to them. They lost 27 million people in World War II. We lost 400,000. They remember, and that was the Nazis. They hate Nazis, and they see what they believe are Nazis in Ukraine. And they're intransigent. They're not going to back down. So if we want to choose to fight them, we're going to wind up in a war.
I just don't see any success at this rate. And again, this when the thaw is now happening, isn't it, in the Ukraine?
Oh, the spring, yeah, I think it is. The Russians have tracked vehicles that can get through the mud, unlike like Challenger tanks, for example. So I don't know. part of the reason I think the Russians are going to go beyond the Dnieper. I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up at the Polish border and the Romanian border because they said Putin came out this week and said we're going to have to create a buffer zone because our cities and Russia keeps getting hit. So we're going to get far enough away that these long range missiles can't hit our cities. So that's what the payoff is for trying to terrorize the Russian civilian population.
And then you think about the other countries on the border of Russia that joined NATO.
Right. Well, the NATO has expanded, all the way up. I mean, and Finland and Sweden just joined. Finland's got a huge border with Russia.
Yeah.
But look at the size of the armies. I mean, the Finnish army is not going to defeat the Russian army, for example. The Russians just going to mobilize another 15 or 20 divisions and put them on the border there. And it's like Lithuania and Estonia, some of these Baltic states, remind me of like a chihuahua barking at a lion. I mean, it's not a good idea to do that, to threaten your neighbor that's 20 times bigger, 50 times bigger than you are. Even if you don't like them, you have to find a way to get along. And I don't believe that Russia ever had the intention of invading Europe. I mean, that's just some of the propaganda we get to justify the military expenditures. But if you keep, if French and Poland and Czechoslovakia put troops in Ukraine, then Russia's going to hit those troops, and who knows what happens after that.
Well, that's the scary part. I mean, I was shocked when the president of France, mentioned, and then of course Biden said, well, that was a misstatement. You know how they try to cover up.
Well, the U.S. basically said that we're not going to put troops in, but we can't tell France what to do. I listened to a former Senator, Richard Black, today, and he believes that the whole deal with France was actually a trial balloon that was thought out in advance. It wasn't just Macron shooting his mouth off. I don't know, but NATO does not want to have this war end with a Russian victory, but I don't think there's anything they can really do about it at this point. If they get in there and they lose, then the choice will be to use tactical nuclear weapons or retreat.
Well, that's the point, too. I'm surprised that Russia hasn't used tactical nuclear at this point.
Well, I don't think they need to. Their state doctrine says that they'll use nuclear weapons if the existence of the state is in danger, but it's not in danger right now. And what's happened is they started using these glide bombs, the FAB bombs. They're big conventional munitions that they rig up with kind of like wings and a guidance system. So their planes can drop them 60 miles away from the target and then direct them precisely in. And they're mass producing 6,000 pound or 3,000 kilogram bombs right now, and they use those to destroy bridges and infrastructure. I think they're just getting ready to go all out. And so I worry, well, what will NATO do? But that's where we're at now. I don't think we can stop what Russia's going to do without using nuclear weapons.
Well, I think it's really time that the governments really put some type of break on this and try to secure some type of peace in Ukraine. I mean, they're going to have to give up some territory. That's given. But if it stops the bloodshed, I mean, a human life, and let alone thousands a day dying needlessly.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, I listened to Colonel Douglas McGregor. He said there's over 1 million, maybe 1.5 million casualties in Ukraine with up to 500,000 dead. And they're not, they started out with I think 40 million people. Are down to maybe in the mid 20s or low 20s. And that's, that's more dead than we had in World War II for the United States. So it's an utter disaster for Ukraine. The country's being destroyed. They're losing an entire generation of young people. And it's just time to stop this. Like you said, we need to negotiate. But I think, honestly, we're at the point now where the only thing Russia is going to accept is an unconditional surrender. Russia went along with the Minsk Accords after 2014, and those were supposed to have the Donbass republics vote and maybe have some autonomy. But Merkel and Hollande, the German and French leaders that signed those accords, came out publicly and admitted, they said, "Oh, those were a ruse. We just signed those accords to give Ukraine time to get, to rearm." So after that, why would the Russians believe any treaty? I don't think that's the problem we have. There's so much anger and so much mistrust now that even negotiations are almost impossible to create.
Well, I think there's going to be one major more battle. And I really think that either we're going to send NATO troops, are going to be boots on the ground, because at that point, Ukraine military, let's face it, the president of Ukraine keeps firing all his commanders, every couple months. That general's gone. That general's gone. I mean, I think they are voicing their opinion. We can't win.
Yeah, it's a sign of desperation.
Yeah, it's scary.
But the war is not really being run from Ukraine. It's being run from Washington. And we try to maintain it. But Ukraine would have lost the war a couple of years ago. They had a draft peace agreement signed in March of 2022. But it was Boris Johnson went over there. The U.S. basically told them, I think, that they said, tear it up. But the war would have ended. All these people would have died. But the agreement was that Ukraine will not be part of NATO. The Donbass republics would be part of Russia, but Ukraine would keep the rest of the territory. Well, that's not going to happen now. I think they're getting ready to hit Kharkov right now, and then they're going to go to Odessa. And it's going to be, we're living in what they call interesting times.
Well, the other thing is, too, some of the NATO countries want to allow Ukraine into NATO. And they're kind of pushing it now. And I think that is going to be the killer right there if that happens.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. I mean, then there won't be no Ukraine, and probably no Poland, no Czechoslovakia, and no France, and maybe who knows.
Well, the Russians can hit every NATO air base and every NATO command center in a matter of 5 minutes. Do they want to do that? Do they want to go down that path? I don't think the people anywhere want that. The American public doesn't want a war. The people in France and Germany, I would think they don't want a repeat of. It'd be worse than World War II at this rate if they're going to use nuclear weapons. But people seem to have forgotten what war is.
Back a year or two ago, they were talking that Russia has the technology with torpedoes that it could detonate a torpedo, and take out UK just by creating a huge tidal wave.
Yeah, you're talking about the Poseidon, which is like a drone. It's almost the size of a miniature submarine, but it's a drone. It's nuclear powered, and they can put up to 100 megaton warhead on that. I think they may use them to shadow like American and French and UK subs to take them out if they're going to go to war. But they can loiter. You can put one off the coast of a country and just let it sit there and then detonate it whenever you want to. It would create a gigantic tidal wave. I mean, that's just one more. The idea is when you have weapons like that, you deter the other side from going to war with you. But there doesn't seem to be any recognition of that in Washington right now. Oh, man.
I don't know. I always say this, and I'm going to say it again, and now I'm going to get about 100 emails today after I say this. But you know what? I think we need to go to Skid Row. Anything, any major city, get 2 buses and get enough to replace Congress and Senate and put bums and give them a free bottle of Muscatel.
We'd have a better result, I think. We'd all be better off.
Yeah. As long as you supply them with Muscatel, Stephen.
They're not looking out for the interests of the American people, that's for sure.
I don't know. Well, our time is up. Is there anything you want to say to the listeners?
Well, I just want to say, get my book if you're interested in nuclear high-altitude electromagnetic pulse. And also, if my daughters are listening, I love you and I miss you.
Okay, Stephen, I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you coming back on. And if anything comes up, get a hold of my producer and we can always get you on.
Okay, great. Well, I'll look forward to talking to you again.
Okay, my friend, you take care. Well, JC, think about all this stuff. It is really scary if you really think about it.
It can be, and if people just need to look back at some of the aftermath of the bombs that were dropped in World War II, a lot of people in Hiroshima and in the other city, they became shadows on the pavement. That's what was left of them.
Yeah, it's like a photograph. If you think about it, a photograph burned in to the cement steps, and I've seen pictures of that.
That's freaky.
It's scary, and I'm not trying to scare people. That's not the point of, bringing on Stephen Starr. But, I mean, I am scared more now than I have ever been of nuclear war in my life.
Yeah, and here's the thing: you got to see things from a different point of view. Like you said, what if Russia, set up shop on the Canadian border? Would we not like that?
Well, or how about Mexican?
How about 1960 when they were in Cuba, 90 miles from Florida? I know we didn't like it then.
Well, you know how close we came to a nuclear war because of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand. Everybody is so, I don't know. Society has really changed. You know that.
I do. The people, you know what it is? With technology, we've lost the interaction with face to face and talking. Everything's behind a computer. It's easy to be a keyboard warrior, but you don't realize, well, what if we just hit this key and now you got a nuke coming your way? They don't realize the horrors of war.
Well, if anybody wants to call in, the number here is 253-203-6777. That's 1-253-203-6777. Come on, people. I don't understand. Here you have the opportunity to call in, voice your opinion. But you know what? If we talked about a 59 Edsel or about a car that makes right-hand turns, people call in. If we call in and talk about recipes, people will call in. Well, I got this recipe. But if it comes down to like a show like tonight about your feelings about nuclear war or what we can do about it or the war in Ukraine, nobody will call in. Isn't that strange?
It is. And you remind me of something like a safety blanket I need to get to fall back on. When I was in grade school, we had, these little drills we got underneath our metal desk. I need to go find one of those so I can feel a little safer.
Oh, why don't you just dig a hole in the backyard, take your bathroom door off because you're by yourself. You don't need it. And have a pile of dirt there just in case. But the problem is, if you get in the hole and put the door above you, who's going to put the dirt over you?
I don't. You got to create a chain reaction. Your neighbor and the next neighbor, they help each other out.
I don't know. That's the scary part. I can't believe they produced that under Reagan about how you could come on. What I'm worried about is maybe I should move to Timbuktu next to Nebraska because I'll tell you what, I'm really close to Beymer. What is Beymer? That's where they have the nuclear subs and they have a nuclear stockpile. But if I go 4 miles the other direction, there's more nukes and there's more ammunition. So that is a scary point. We got a caller. Who do we have?
This is Tom calling back.
Okay, well, you need a direct line. You know that.
Maybe I should do that. Listening to tonight's show, it elicits in me the idea that way too many Americans have become complacent. They basically, have this false to fact idea that running around and being complacent and working, voting for the Democrats or voting for the Republicans, taking a side, whatever is going to save them from annihilation if things basically go south in a major way. And I think that your show, to those naysayers who never have been in the military and have been exposed to the information that I have and that you have and your guest who is head and shoulders above the information that I have, the point is that he's not doing it just to scare you. He's going about that to make a statement about what we're confronted with and the possibilities. And I think that people need to take that into consideration because I, for one, have lost faith in our senators and congressmen. I don't think that, I think that way too many of them have become complacent. They've basically become the puppets of lobbyists. And, when they can pass these huge amounts of capital and send it off to the Ukraine, it was like during Vietnam. We kept sending, which compared to what's going on now is nothing. But, when we keep sending billions and billions and billions of dollars, and it's all borrowed into circulation by a central bank, and people don't take that into consideration, that we basically owe a central bank trillions of dollars.
Okay, let me jump in. Okay, Tom. Tom, let me jump in there.
Yeah.
Okay, right now, one of my computers are down. I can only take one call at a time. So wait till Tom's off, and then please call back, because I've been getting a lot of calls, and I can't take them when I have somebody on the line. So yeah, what you're saying is it's true, but the problem is people are now more concerned about themselves, and I don't blame them, because we had COVID. We have what's going on with the economy. The economy is tanking, and a lot of people don't realize that, Tom. And just go to the grocery store, like me and Steve were talking. Try to buy groceries and live within a budget. You can't do it anymore because the cost of inflation is going. In fact, the feds are going to reduce the interest rate again very shortly because the economy is slipping.
Well, when you're sending all that money abroad, of course we have the inflation that we have.
Well, just think about a budget of $1.2 trillion. China not, renewing their bonds. That's like you write a check out, right? And you're kiting. So you write a check out and you write yourself another check and put in the bank to cover from a different bank to cover your check, right? And we're going to get caught. We're going to get caught. Hey, Tom, I have to let you go. We got the lines are going crazy here.
Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you for calling, Tom. Okay, if you want to call in now is the time to do it. So give us a call. And JC, it's true. I mean, the economy is starting to slip and people don't realize it.
Yeah, you're right. And if they don't realize it, it's too late. But like you say, the people with the power to do something, they're not doing it. It's almost as if they want to do this war stuff, and that's a lose-lose for everybody, Gary.
Well, wars, you know what? Wars do create jobs. Look at World War II. Look at Vietnam. Look at the Korean War. All wars create jobs. We got another caller. Who do we have?
Hello, this is Leopold calling. Thank you for taking me into the show.
Yes.
And I just wanted to tell you that I don't believe that anyone living in the U.S. or Russia, the normal people like you and me, want any kind of war. I think that's something people know, but nobody talks about it. Because there is always this narrative that some countries, all the inhabitants are bad or something like this. This is not true. Those decisions are being made somewhere else. And nuclear war, the heads of the military of Russia and the U.S. were wise enough for decades not to think about it, not to do that, because there can't be any winner. Everybody on this planet loses because of radiation and thousands of years of poisoning to radiation. So I don't know, but I understand absolutely that some people like you are afraid, but I still hope that it won't come to that, I still hope that some sort of wisdom finally comes through and that people sit on a table and make peace and simply find a solution. And I believe it's possible. Of course, I'm not a politician. I can't say that. But I know so many people, and nobody in any country wants to go to war with the U.S. I hope you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. But, again, you have the president of France threatening to put troops in Ukraine. And, I can see Putin's idea, if you put troops from NATO into Ukraine, it could escalate it. And then you have Poland threatening to put troops into Ukraine. It's escalating. And I don't want to see nuclear war. That's why I brought Stephen Starr on, who's a professor who teaches what could happen if we did have a nuclear war. I want people to realize it's not going to be a win-win situation. We all lose.
I'm absolutely with you, and I'm really negatively astonished that so many forces are trying to escalate this war, to bring it to this big break. There is no benefit. There is no real benefit. And I know France said something, other countries said something, but nobody, because they all think they can bring down sooner or later Putin and Russia. Putin will not live forever. Somebody else will come afterwards.
They could be worse, though. They could be worse than Putin.
Absolutely, because you're right. Because you don't know who's coming next. We had now decades of the possibility just to work together. And it seems that not everybody is like you and me who wants that. But you're right. In my opinion, it's bad for everybody if it comes to that point, and I'm not with those who make those decisions to say we put now more troops there, we put more pressure and so on. Because what will be the result? I want to see Russia, America, and Europe living in peace, researching, bringing this planet forward, thinking of cleaning the oceans from any kind of poisoning. That's my vision of the future.
Do you know who Captain Paul Watson is? He is the co-founder of Greenpeace, and various other organizations. We're killing our ocean. People don't realize it. I talked to so many people and I said, if the ocean dies, we die. And they go, no. I said, where do you think our oxygen comes from? Well, it comes from the Amazon and trees. Well, a small percentage does, but our oxygen comes from the plankton in the ocean. And without the plankton,
right.
We don't live.
You're right about this. Huh?
We don't live without the plankton.
But, some people say, absolutely. And what people realize, a lot of people, but not everybody, is the world is like one huge organism, and we have microplastic, we have radiation in the oceans. Think of those Japanese reactors which leaked for months and months and months. We have chemicals from our pharmacies in the oceans because they go finally in, and that's bad, and it will come back on the whole planet, not only on mankind. And by the way, when the guy's on your show, I'm always listening in because he's actually trying to do something, And unfortunately, I'm not rich enough to finance another boat for him, but I'm totally with you because I say we have to do so many things as mankind, and we can. By the way, we can. Turn it around in 1 or 2 generations, and how can anybody believe that nuking anyone is going to help or win anything? I don't get it, but that's beyond me. But I'm happy that your show exists because people can call in, and you take on, even the one guy which talked about deeply forgetful people. So it's not just about cryptids; it's a whole round, and I wanted to thank you for that, Gary.
Well, you know what we do also? We bring on movie stars on Friday, and, the first guest, we kind of relax and we just have fun, and then we get into UFOs, we get into, like nuclear war, we can get into all these other subjects, and that's what I do on Friday. We go a little bit longer than the weeknight show, to cover maybe some subject we don't want to cover during the week. And I do appreciate you calling in. And where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm calling from Vienna, Austria, small country in the midst of Europe, totally neutral regarding everything. Schwarzenegger comes from here, yeah. So I'm calling you from the heart of Europe, and I'm listening to your show a lot of times, For example, I like the one park ranger who was on your show a lot of times.
Christopher George.
About, Christopher George.
What do you think what some of the stuff he said were park rangers? Like a park ranger went missing, and when they found him, they found his clothes, and his body was like thick as a piece of paper. Isn't that kind of like what's going on?
I think he's telling the truth. I don't think that there is any made-up stories, okay? that's the one thing. The other thing is, when you hear those stories, you absolutely know it's not a natural phenomenon or a phenomenon which is not known, but nothing we know about can explain that.
Well,
and you talk. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. But the other one that really puzzled me is when we talked to him a couple of times about it, and my producer, we need to get Christopher George back on. But, here's the one thing, it really astounded me. There was a young kid, like about 18, 19 years old, who was an avid photographer who wanted to try to capture a Bigfoot. And the park rangers knew him in that district. And one day he went missing. And then they found his body. And what was left of his body, he was sitting on a tree that, has fallen over. And he was sitting there. His camera bag with food and all that was down by his feet. But from the belly button up was totally missing. And what he said when he looked at it, too, because he was a law enforcement ranger. And in fact, before he retired, he was in charge of a couple federal areas. And what he said, it looked like a laser just took it. It was like precision cut. Yep. What happened to the other part of the body? Bears can't do it.
Absolutely not. And as you said in the show, they would have torn the rest apart, and all kinds of animals would have eaten it, but nobody touched it. And do you remember the first Terminator, when the Terminator came into the time and there was this bubble around him, and you saw that it was cut off, around. It was just a science fiction movie, not reality. We know that. But it reminded me a little bit of that. Like some energy field or some laser would have cut it out. I didn't see it, but, it's just something must have happened. And I believe that there are so many things going on, which we can sooner or later, of course, explain, but we need the right data. And as long as the data or the information is being kept, you have it in this realm of we can't explain it. But you're right. A lot of things are going on because those people are honest. Those park rangers I've met when I visited the U.S., they're deeply honest people, in my opinion, yeah? They don't tell stories like that.
And what he also said is when he went back on his computer to go back and check on some of these cases that, that he couldn't even get into it. We had they wouldn't give him access to it. And it's like, he said, that's the problem. When people go missing in the forest, a lot of times it's like, hey, it's over with. And the rangers can't investigate it because they're locked out of their own system on that case. And, it was not just that. He said some other weird things, too, that, again, one time there was a car accident going through a federal park. And him and another law enforcement agent pulled up. They blocked off the roads because they didn't want another accident. And they were standing on the side of the vehicle. And he said they had a reflection of like a monster-looking face on the passenger door window. And they reached for their guns. They turned around, and it was nothing there.
Yeah, I heard. I've listened to that show too, and it was like in the movie The Predator, and I was very happy that it wasn't like in the movie because both are still alive. But it was interesting that because of the mirror reflection, they saw it. So that must have done something to the light, shifting it a few frequencies or whatever. And that's what I believe, because you said yourself, the idea for the Predator must have come from somewhere. And too many people say that they hear the clicking sounds. May I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
You have all those stories about gray aliens, about negative extraterrestrials, and so on. And you are the only guy I hear which is sane enough to say, why do people, or some people, not people, some people believe that beings who hurt us, abuse us, kidnap us, would be in any form a higher being. They have a higher standard of technology, which we will catch up sooner or later. Technology is just a tool, in my opinion. But let's face it, a friend or a friendly being would ask, would invite you, and if it sees you are scared, it would back off, in my opinion, no matter where in the universe, and no matter what kind of life form. But this is, I don't know why anyone could think that if they exist, and let's just say they exist, we are in Night Dreams Talk Radio, we're allowed to say that, it doesn't matter, but why would anybody believe that any extraterrestrial being, or from another dimension or wherever, would be a friendly, helping being by doing that? Can you tell me that?
I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna get hate mail. I'm gonna be honest with you, but look, I said this last night on the show. Cain and Abel, biblical times, right? One of them, one of them got slain by his brother. Now, men and it has always been warriors. We've always been killers. We've always been murderers. All from the biblical time to right now, what's going on. We have been in wars on this planet constantly, nonstop, since men decided they hold their weenie and go peeing in the bush. It hasn't changed. And just because we're not even a civilization one yet, just because another race of humanoids or whatever they are, could be 10,000, 100,000 years, 50 million years, I don't care. They still could have that same trait. But you get these people that say, oh, they're here to protect us. They would, if there was a nuclear exchange, they wouldn't let it happen. These people are dreamers. They need to be with Jones back in, I'm not going to say where, and they need to drink Kool-Aid, because reality is something is going on. And we're not being told the truth. Back a few years ago, an ex-retired CIA agent sent me some pictures of human mutilations that happen in Brazil and Argentina. Okay? And when you look at those things, there's no way we have the technology to do what I saw in those pictures. The same way with cattle mutilation. Now, some of them I do think are not real. I think that they're done by fraud or military or somebody for their 2 minutes of fame. But something is going on. So if you are abducted out of your bed, driving your car, camping in a campground, and you're taken against your wishes and brought on aboard a craft, and they strap you down and they start taking your semen or eggs or prodding you or opening you up to see what makes you tick, they're not friendly.
Absolutely. You're completely right. That the point is, I don't know if those friendly rays 100% exist. There's always this saying, but since I've never stood face to face with any one of them, it's like a little bit like hearsay. But my mind, I'm a country boy who lives in the biggest city of Austria. But you have to see reality. You have to hear what is it doing. A German scientist once said, and I think that's a good thing, if he would meet aliens and he could, and they would give real and honest answer, he would ask one question: what stories do you tell your kids when you bring them to bed? And we talk now about, of course, races who have kids. But that's a good story. That's a good question, because it would show more of their way of living, their way of thinking. And I don't. There is this one guy in your country who was even on some documentaries who did the same. Of course, the aliens need to take our DNA. They need to take this. We have to sacrifice some of us. No, if you really develop a higher technology, you can make non-invasive scans of a body, which will not hurt the body. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, well, you're right.
Something.
But how many times, unless we're being visited by thousands of different ETs, which I don't buy, but again, how many times, let's be honest with you, I don't bring many abductees on my show because I busted a couple of them. Their story, I would have them on.
I know. I love you for that.
And I bring them on a second time, and their stories change each time I had them on. Terry Lovelace's story embellished. These people embellish this stuff. The point is, I want the truth. That's all I want. I want to know what's going on. But when it comes to like collecting DNA, how many times do they have to take people to get their DNA? They don't, this is going on. It don't make sense to me.
In a German or in an American laboratory, you take it 1 or 2 times and you have the full sequence. With all due respect, we both know that, yeah? And, that's not what it is, but there is another aspect nobody talks about, and maybe you can take me, you can tell me your opinion.
Yeah, go.
The whole UFO thing, some say they want to take our mind somewhere else and to do some other things in the world that we are not aware of, blah, blah, blah. Let's just say, as a first example, we need a certain substance in order to heal people. It's in space, and we take it and we have it, okay? That would be the one thing you and I would think. Others would think, no, if you do it like it would be gold, the whole market would crash, and so on and so on and so on. Because those who control the money would make it happen like this. And with the UFO question, it's, in my opinion, whether they exist or not is a secondary question, not for you and me from our hearts, but what is being done with the information? Let's just say, yeah, it's being released, and then what then? Is money going to crash? Is the military going to have billions and billions and trillions? Or whereby the military in the US and worldwide, they do a good job protecting their people. I really have to say, this is not against anyone. It's just a theoretical question of what could be done. What is being done if we find out we have ETs and we have UTs, ultra-terrestrial, the positive higher beings, which really are that what we would like them to be. What is being done with that? Is it going to nurture our future development, or is there going to be that what Dr. Greer says, that maybe not only a false flag, but also, you look at some of this DAX index and whatever it is, and it's crashing. You know what I mean? This is where I say maybe that's a question we should put first. What are we doing with that knowledge, and are we going to use it wisely? It's not about, it's about that, because I would like to have ETs bringing healing, look, we have a cure for cancer. Look, this is how you can clean your oceans. Look, this is how you can clean the air. This is energy which doesn't poison the environment. Sooner or later, which one?
Here's the point. I think we do have cure for cancer. I think we have a lot of cures for a lot of things. It came out that Rexall drugs back in the 80s, actually, for people that had heart failure, they came up with a formula that could reverse heart failure. But yet the big companies don't want that because they make their money. Just like artificial kidneys. They can come out with artificial kidneys that could be attached into somebody where somebody doesn't have to go in 2-3 times a week and go for dialysis. But they don't want to do it because they make billions and billions a year off of it. That is the problem. Now, when it comes to ETs, here's my feeling that a lot of people are just simply, oh, well, I can't. They think that we are the only humanoids out there, period. I've talked to so many people that have literally told me we are the only intelligent. And I look at them and I say to myself, I feel so sorry for you because we're not the only people in this campground. There's some people down in the next camping spot. We're not. And I don't know. The point is the government, going back from Roswell, has lied to us. And it's like when you're a kid, you go in and the ice cream man is going down the street and your mom says, no, I can't give you the nickel to go buy that ice cream cone. So when she's doing the dishes or laundry, you sneak into her bedroom, you open up her purse, and you take that nickel and you go buy an ice cream cone. Now, are you going to fess to your mom if she didn't say anything? Well, I took that nickel. That's the whole point. They're not going to fess to the people after they started this whole lie. They're not going to come out and tell the population the truth. They're going to spread a lot of disinformation.
It has to be done by the people or by I don't know, by, I hope, positive events, because everybody's going for the negative events, and I think, no, it should be done in a way, how should I say, in a friendly way, you know what I mean? If you would be in charge of that, you would look for a way where the knowledge comes out, but in a way people can take it, and in a way where all sides have some sort of good communication. That's my take on that, I don't know if it's possible. For example, you once you have a lot of shows regarding Bigfoot, and of course, is it aggressive? Is it not? Like humans or any animals? Yes, but let's say it's an animal. It's related to humans. What are we going to do? Are we going to protect it and give it its own space? Or, these are all questions. So I think any sane person would think, what are we going to do? That's why I love the park ranger, because they would say, okay, look, they're dangerous. This is the area they live in. We don't touch that, You know what I mean?
I want to jump in here. I had an encounter. Mm-hmm. I had an encounter with a medical doctor back early 2000s up in the Canadian Rockies. We went up there to take pictures, ghost town pictures, matter of fact. Yep. And we went to an old Japanese internment camp up in the Canadian Rockies. And we had a hike in about 2 miles. And we went there, and it was not virtually anything there, but there was a creek. And on the other side of the creek, there was some mining equipment. And my friend said, hey, look at that giant bear. Now, I had a good-sized telephoto on my camera. He liked doing wide angle. So I turned around to take a picture of this bear. And at the same time I swung that camera around and I put it up to my eye and looked at it, I realized it wasn't a bear. And it screamed, and it chased us for 2 miles back to the car. I almost killed my friend because I got in the car. All I wanted to do was get out of there. I shoved it in reverse. I was dragging my friend. I could have ran over him. The creature, whatever you want to call it, threw a big rock, took out the passenger fender and the door. And, and I know what I smelt. I know what I saw. But then you get these people off, well, Bigfoot would never hurt people. They give off orbs, and they're friendly. Now, let's face it. They didn't grow up watching TV like I did with, with Mary Poppins and all those type of movies. They don't know how to intermix with human beings, and I don't think they're going to be friendly. But yet these people can make these statements. Oh, they telecommute with me. They talk to me in my brain, and they like humans. I don't buy it.
That Harry and the Hendersons, that movie, did it.
Yeah.
Where there was this friendly, but that's not reality. The point is, for example, I love animals. I love, for example, big cats, tigers, and so on. But any of them would tear me apart and kill me if I would meet it in India or so somewhere.
Well, can I tell you something?
That doesn't mean that I don't feel loving and protective about them. Yep, of course, you can.
I'm going to say this. I was watching on the news here a couple days ago where a lady, died. And they found her 2 days later. And what they found is she had 2 cats. People, you love your cats, right? But if you die, your cats will start eating you within 24 hours.
True.
Okay,
True.
And here's
I have cats myself, and they would simply devour me after. If I would have a heart attack, they would eat me up. That's true.
And then they
doesn't mean that I don't love them.
I'm just saying that's how animals are. Your friendly little poodle and your dachshund that you love too, will do the same thing after a couple days. They're hungry. They're going to eat you. Now, there's other breed dogs out there, for what they were talking about, that would go weeks without eating you because they love you. But again, I'm just drawing the line. Bigfoot don't know humans. They're not a human. They didn't go to school. They didn't learn the right and wrongs from their parents. they are not humans. People need to realize that.
You know, when those, I believe your story, and I'm an engineer, I studied and so on, so I work with reality. But I believe you because I can feel it, and it's also the story, how you tell it, it shows me you experienced that, okay?
Well, I can honestly say that my friend's father was the Superior Court judge in Pierce County. His brother, it was and is a high defense criminal attorney in Tacoma. I have nothing to hide. Okay, what we saw is what we saw. People say to me, "Well, Gary, why didn't you get a picture? You had your camera." Well, I'm going to tell you, when something it screams and chases after you that looks like that, you're not going to turn around and take a picture. You got one thing in your mind: get the hell out of there.
No. You know, you're running, and the point is, the creature maybe got scared and thought, okay, oh my God, what's going on? I have to defend myself. Just the instinct, not the rationality. And I kill the enemy first before it kills me, like often in nature. I don't want to be protective towards what chased you because I'm happy nothing happened to you. But that might be it. You know, you're on to the truth, you know. But also, there are stories of many cryptids. I know 90% to 95% are made up, but not everything, you know, not everything. And too many people, you know, tell stories, especially to the kind park ranger you have always on. And he said the truth. When somebody experiences something outside of that, is mainstream, it's still reality, but it's not in the books. They don't look into the eyes because they think, if I tell my story now, people might think I'm crazy, which is not true. You know, there are things happening. Let's be happy that we don't know everything, that we have another day to experience something new, to discover something new. You know, and it's not bad that we don't know it today. Tomorrow is also a day. You know, we can do that, but it's important how we are approaching it, in my opinion, and how we are approaching. For example, Dr. Green on your show, he talks about this energy source, you know, this motor which turns, which gives you energy forever. And a lot of people had some version of it, like the one guy who had a car running by water, and all of them died. Yeah, but I've never seen a picture different from the others where it would tell you anything how it works or what it would do. You know, I wish for that, but did you ever have something substantial? Or somebody telling you something substantial, where you say it's more than just a story?
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you. I've had people who wrote books. I'm not going to mention a name, but there's one guy who has 35 books on UFOs, and he cranks them out every couple of months. And if you read it, I mean, come on. I mean, people, here's the problem. You got people into it, not for the real reason what it is. You got people in it to make a buck. That's the problem.
That's the point, yeah. You know the movie The Matrix. I'm not going to talk about the movie. But when it came out, I knew that people from the esoteric scene and people from the UFO scene would take it as gospel and sell their new books and their new insights. Yeah, we live in the Matrix. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. No matter what, you know. And those who interpret God, you know, everybody has the freedom to believe in a higher being which loves us all, you know. That the whole universe, it's nothing but the brainwave patterns of that super being beyond any extraterrestrial beings. I like that thought, yeah, but it's just selling something new. And that's what I love with you, because you bring it to the point. So many people hear one thing and sell it and yeah, this and that. That's why so many people are selling you stories, not you, everybody. Selling stories about abductions, then adjusting them to the new form, just for selling it. Like the one guy, which I also like. Disclosure is 3 days ahead. Disclosure is tomorrow. Disclosure is several hours away.
Oh, you know, I've been doing this 53 years. I've been doing this. And I'll tell you, the last 10 years, or I'm going to go back because I came out of retirement back 6 years, a little over 6 years ago, and got back into radio. because I'm an old man. And, here's the point. I started getting messages from people, major people out there in ufology. Major disclosure is going to happen in 3 weeks. I've been hearing major disclosure is going to be happening, honestly, for almost 53 years. It's coming in the next month. It's coming 2 months from now. It's going to be told, Carter's going to, Bush is going to, everybody's going to be telling, Trump is going to announce that there's ETs. Biden's going to announce it. That people want it so bad, they make this up in their head.
I know. That's the point. The wish that it's happening now, that finally they got proof for what they always thought would be it, that is so strong that they grasp anything. And I would wish for things to come out and be used in a meaningful way. I just don't experience that. Also, since you are old adults, you're not old, you're adults, okay? I'm 53 years old, by the way, so there is that connection. But in the 1970s, when I was a kid, till the mid-80s, what they brought about UFOs or the shows, or even Leonard Nemoy in his show, what they brought was, for me, so much deeper and more to the core and more realistic also, no matter what topic, if it's about the powers of the mind or so. It was more like something to grab and to think about than in the years after, because today I have always the feeling it's just about selling something. It's about almost having a small sci-fi movie made out of it, and you hear the same stories for the 20th time until you can't hear it anymore, and nobody's like you who says, okay, I just want to know the truth. I'm silent. You talk. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine, but I have to let you go. But, feel free. You're welcome to call in on any Friday of the show. Do me a favor.
I didn't want to overstay my welcome. I just wanted to, because it was interesting to hear your opinion about it. Thank you much for the time, and you're right. There shouldn't be any nuclear war, and thank you for the time. I'm out. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, make sure you tell your friends about the show, will you?
Of course.
Okay, you take care. Okay, well, JC, that was a very interesting conversation out of Austria.
Yes.
I want some beer now and Wiener Schnitzel.
Oh, Vienna, Austria, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. People have been asking about Kim on the chat. There was a medical emergency with her husband. That's why she's not been on chat. She's extremely tired. And that's the message I got from Kim today. So I don't know what you got today from her.
Yeah, well, David's ill right now, so she's got to spend some time with him and help him. So, yeah, it's exhausting, so that's what's going on there. And hopefully everything comes out okay for David.
Now, see, that's true. Proof right here. People from other countries listen to the show.
Oh, yes. And he called in, a couple months back, too. And he's a longtime listener, as you can tell. He's listened to several past shows. It sounds like he really liked the Chris George episode.
Oh, he listens. The way it sounds like he listens probably to all of them. Here's the other thing, too. One of my computers is down for taking calls here tonight. And normally I would have a second call line I could fall back on. I couldn't do it. And the phone lines, JC, were going every time, somebody's on, it's been flashing. Other people have been trying to call in. I could only take one call.
I got a vision. It must have looked like the old Jerry Lewis telethon. Remember those when the phones would ring?
No, it actually pops up with their phone number and all that stuff. And I can't get it. I'm sorry. I apologize. Again, I want to, if I alarmed anybody talking about nuclear war, what could happen, and politics. I normally don't get into politics, but it all ties in together. And, it's time that we open our eyes up and realize, we're in a scary time of history. That's all I can say on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to become a shadow on a wall or a street somewhere, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hate to see my foot sizzle, too. Hey, look at that light. God. Hey, Linda, give me the sunglasses. That's gone.
Give me a s'more.
Yeah, I moved where I did. When I moved here 24 years ago, I moved away from the city because I lived in Tacoma. And one day I was watching TV in my bedroom and I heard a pop. And, I look at the window and the window had a big hole in it. I look at the wall, across from me. And then, naturally we called the police. There was a drive-by shooting, not just my house. Some cars got shot up and all that stuff. And when the police got there, they said, "Where were you at?" And I said, "Right here." They said that bullet missed your head by that much. And I said, "What do you mean that much?" "About an inch." I wouldn't be here. It would have got me right in the head. And I told my wife, "You know what? We're moving." And I bought this property, and I thought I was away from, that type of thing. But then, like I said, if I go down the hill and make a left and go about 2 miles, there's nuclear weapons. They got a barbed wire fence there with guards all around it all the time, driving around. There's a nuclear depot. And a few for the ships, which I don't think, anyway. And then if I go another 2.5 miles down that road, Bremerton Naval Base there, where they got some aircraft carriers. They're going through and there's subs there. But if I go down another way, 13 miles from my house, there's Beymer, which they have a nuclear arsenal there and subs. I mean, I'm just a couple miles away. If I go the other way, I'm about 9 miles away from the joint base of Fort Lewis and McChord bases. I'm in the hot zone.
You're in the bullseye. And let me ask you this, Gary. In the 23 years, have you noticed that the city is now approaching you and encroaching closer and closer to you with, new buildings or whatever?
Well, where I was at, honestly, where I'm at, I got 2 acres of cedar trees. I'm the only one in the area right now that has 2 acres of cedar trees. And, during the summertime, I get all these loggers coming in. "You want to sell your trees?" "No, I don't want to sell the trees. I bought this property because I wanted to get away from people. And now, after about 8 years living here, there's houses everywhere. And, when I first moved here, there was deer running on my property. We had all kinds of wildlife and all that stuff, possums and all that stuff, right? I remember looking out my window one time and watching a bear going down my driveway with 2 cubs. There are no bears left anymore. All we got now is coyotes and a deer occasionally.
You got some coyotes, but you know what? You still got the old reliable goats, I'm sure, the little miniature goats in quotation marks, as you know. And you got some other animals floating around there too, I believe.
Yeah, we got a couple of mini horses, and we got a little mini farm, and that's the whole point. I wanted to get away from the population. And when I can go outside, when I get depressed, JC, what I do is we got a pond. We got some big goldfish in it. And I got this, where I can sit down next to the pond. And I look at the trees and I look at the sky. And it takes me instantly out of my depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
I look at nature and I look at the skies and I look at the trees and I see a squirrel here and there now. Even them are getting thin. But, it just makes me feel like I'm part of nature.
Yeah, that's what nature's good for. And it's curious, too, in 23 years, how the city is coming towards you and you've got away from it. And you're not the only one, I'm sure, that has that issue or noticed it. But
well, it's changed. And then, too, I got to get my septic tank pumped, the crapper, right? So I call up and, $900. To pump the shit out of it? $900. Well, why? Well, okay, we have to get a permit from the county. That's $150. We have to do a testing of the septic tank. Okay, that's another couple $100. And then the fee is $479 actually to pump it. But you got all these other fees. And don't forget, you got taxes on it. And if you pay by credit card, we're going to charge you another 3%.
You know, it's almost as if there was a whole Ponzi scheme or pyramid scheme hooked to that. To just one little thing, you went done.
Yeah. I remember when, God, I was a kid. We lived in Seattle, and we were on septic tank back then, back in the early 50s. And the city made my father hook up to the sewer. And guess what? My dad just like almost pissed his pants because he had to pay to get hooked up to the sewer.
Yeah, it was almost as if it's like that old scenario. You give us some money and we're going to give you protection. It's like, hey, give us some money and you're going to hook into our sewer and we're going to tax you for this and fine you for that. And we need a permit here. And before you know it, you're paying a lot of money because your crapper's in the crapper.
Well, again, too, for like internet here, you know, I'm going to be blunt and honest with you. They wanted $3,000 to dig a ditch because again, I got an easement on my property, which is my easement, but to run from the street, which is all utilities is underground, to dig a ditch to run the cable to the cable box, you know, which is at the end of my property. So it's a ways away. $3,000 plus change. That's just the labor. Then the cost of whatever the material, who knows what that is. Well, it came down to, well, please, what can we do about it? Well, if you want to be freaking cheap, we'll just run a cable on the ground and you can throw dirt over it.
Oh my goodness! Plus, there's a machinery. At least there used to be a machinery like digs that ditch.
Yeah, what's it? Ditch dig or witch or whatever, dig witch or whatever it's called. Yeah. Hey, who's some of our guests next week?
Well, Gary, since you asked, we are going to have Sam. Who are we having on next?
Yeah, who are we having on?
Sam Moreno's coming on Wednesday. Listen here, he is the state director of Illinois for many years, and he's investigated.
Move on.
Yeah, or move on. He's investigated a couple very well-known cases like the O'Hara Airport incident in 2006 and many police departments with the triangle UFO over, I think it was a tri-state area actually also. Then we got L.A. Marzulli coming on next Thursday. He's going to talk about many different UFO incidents and the Peruvian skulls, the oblong ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then next Friday, we have Barry Livingston coming on. Did a lot of acting, singing.
My Three Sons with Fred McMurray. 8 seasons.
I knew you would know that one. And then the second guest is going to be Ryan Wood talking about, UFOs and MJ-12 and some secret documents.
And didn't we just book another famous actor?
We did. I don't know if we should reveal it or not.
Go ahead. Why not?
All right. Well, April 5th, we are going to have the one and only Thomas Jane coming on. Yes, the actor Thomas Jane is going to be coming on talking a little bit about script. But, he's one of the main speakers at the Contact in the Desert. And he's going to be talking about what he's, that kind of stuff too. So this is a twofer. You don't want to miss that show. April 5th, Gary.
Oh, and some of the movies he's been on. Oh, come on. The Deep Blue Sea. You name the movies. And he just got done filming a movie in Australia.
Yeah, I love his work. I tell you, I do. I know the one series he did in Australia I think it's called Top or something like that. It was a great series. Yeah, he's going to be great. And also, as a reminder, our hours, Gary, in April are changing.
They are?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes, they are.
Is it going to be later or earlier?
It's going to be an hour earlier, Mr. Gary.
So 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific?
That's right.
How about Nebraska time?
Well, Nebraska time is, I believe, Central time, so that would be 8 p.m. Central.
Oh, wow. Do me a favor, people who are listening to the show. If you're listening on Apple, please do a review. And, that is very important. Unless you want a lot of commercials on this show, we make our money off all these different apps. The radio stations pay us nada. We just basically supply it to them as a convenience, but we make our money to pay his wage, my wage, and the other people that work here off of, people listening and the commercials that get put on, not by us so much, by them. And people have enough nerve to email like, you know what? Your show has all these commercials. I was reading the reviews last night on Apple. That show is hard to listen to. They got a lot of commercials. Well, let's face it. If you listen on Apple or iHeart or TuneIn, Spotify, if you subscribe to it and you pay their small monthly fee, you get no commercials. Nada. I'm not responsible for what your internet, not your internet, but your app you listen to puts on. They do it because that's how they stay in business and make their money.
That's the ironic part. They're not even our commercials that we have anything to do with, out of our control.
Yeah, you know, the one I heard the other day when I was listening off one of the apps?
Not the ancient Egyptian.
No, condoms.
That's the one, the ancient Egyptian.
Yeah.
Contraceptive, yeah.
Yes. Safe gay sex.
Well,
That's what it was. And I was going, oh my God. But I have no control on that.
Oh, you don't.
No. So do me a favor, please, give us a good review if you're listening even on YouTube for the small amount of you. I can't understand. We can have 1 million downloads out there, be on radio stations. Now, wait a minute. Now, James, I can't understand why we don't have a lot of people on YouTube. We got almost 2,000 subscribers after, God, since they invented the wagon wheel. Tell your friends about us. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Come on. I got to pay bills. I like having my TV dinners after the show.
Yeah, it sounds like pretty soon you're going to have to go out and set these little vermin traps and get a little squirrel here and there.
Now, if you have a UFO story, a Bigfoot encounter, or you have a book that you wrote and you want to be a guest on the show, how do they do it, Mr. JC?
Well, they can email at producer nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. That's producer nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
And, the Hitman show is going to be going live, too. Not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. Am I right?
Well, let's see. What's today's date? No, this Saturday's 3 Saturdays from now. The first Saturday in April. The 5th will be the live show.
Yeah, it'll be live. So check out the JC the Hitman show. And you got a website. Why don't you share it to everybody?
Yes, check out my website, jcthehitmanshow.com. jcthehitmanshow.com. A lot of great paranormal stories on there, upcoming guests, past guests, pictures, and just a lot of fun stuff to look at, Gary.
Now, if you really want to check out a website, go to nightdreamstalkradio.com. Because if you want to find out news stories that you can't find on Fox, CNN, or your local TV or radio station, go there. Guy Ticker makes such great with the news. He's up to date on everything. If you want to find out about Bigfoot, UFO sightings, anything out there, there's literally a couple hundred news stories. It's updated like 3 or 4 times a week. He adds a bunch of them on. So you need to check that out too.
Yeah, and didn't he mention something about some Bigfoot chips or something earlier?
Oh, come on. That is a spoof. And you know what? We just got one more call here for tonight, and then we're going to say good night after this call. And again, I want to thank everybody out there. Ron, December, Tom has already gone, Metatron Power and Light. But let's take this one call.
Oh, for gosh sakes, how long am I going to have to... Oh, hello. It's the G-Man here. I'm growing gray whiskers waiting all night long. Treat me like a common criminal on the phone here, screening and asking questions. It is the G-Man, and I'm here once again, glutton for punishment that I am, to prove that despite present company, there is intelligent life in this here universe.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's all that.
Something.
Oh, come
Why
on.
do I even bother with you? Does your family tree have any branches at all? Look,
Yeah,
this
they
is
dropped
what I meant
off.
by common criminal. I get this note from one of your guys over there, and they said, G-Man, if you want to come on the airwaves and educate our audience here, now look at this. No sex, no religion, no politics. What are we going to talk about? Lucky for us, this here world is tilted on some sort of strange axis here, and there is plenty on my mind that is bothering me. Starting with that Princess, what's her name, Kate Catherine Wales, middle, whatever her name is, over there in Great England, okay? The fact of the matter is she goes into the hospital, right?
Yeah.
They do some mysterious surgeries on her, and then she disappears completely from sight. Don't you think with all them castles having dungeons, that's just a little bit suspicious?
Yeah, I do.
You know, Gary Anderson, I have neither the time nor the crayons to fully explain this to you, but let me try.
Thank you.
It appears that all of the conspiracy theories, she's in an induced coma, she's hiding from the mob because she owes too much money from gambling debts that her husband racked up. Yeah, that's a whole other story. Oh, how about the one where she's been kidnapped by space aliens? None of that is true. As everyone knows, like I said before, all of these castles have dungeons. That's where she is. Why? 'Cause she pissed somebody off.
Yeah, well, you're pissing me off.
Come on, come on, come on. I smell smoke. Were you trying to think too hard again, Gary Anderson? It is so clear she went on the TikTok, and that's why they want to ban it. It all comes together. And she said something that somebody in China didn't like. They called up the government and said, hey, lock her up. She's making too much noise. So they can't put her in no regular jail. They put her in a dungeon for a few months. Happens all the time. She'll be out soon. She won't say another word. Everything will be fine. I mean, understand this. Why in the world would anybody want to ban TikTok? I mean, what kind of data are they trying to steal from me? I'm on the TikTok. I don't even use my fake name on there. I use another fake name I made up just for that app, so I could watch cats dance around and get my daily dose of dumbness by watching people choke to death by eating spoonfuls of cinnamon.
Yeah, I bet you do.
You're going to give me a coronary stroke. You know, Gary Anderson, if ignorance is bliss, you
Thank
must
you.
be ecstatic all the time. Listen, the reason everybody is talking about TikTok and banning this and banning that is because here in the USA, we happen to like that princess. And we don't like the fact that she's locked up in a dungeon because she said something. It was probably some recipe thing that went bad and somebody got sick and threw up over there. We don't know that for sure. But what we do know is this. There is no data on that app that is worth stealing. And you know what? If they want to know on what side I butter my toast, let them. That's fine. Maybe that'll lead to the invention of a piece of bread that when I drop it on the floor lands on the right side so the butter don't get all over the carpet. Oh, and by the way, the cherry on the proof cake is this. They doctored up that photo because they can't show all the change in shekels they got because she's tied to the wall like they do in dungeons, right? Okay, I'm done. Gary Anderson, remember, what doesn't kill you disappoints the rest of us. Goodbye!
Goodbye. JC, I tell you what, I shouldn't have took the call.
No, because he always got the hard points and questions every time.
I don't know, but I can tell you, he must be a real TikToker.
I thought he was going to say a real something else.
Yeah, well, I got to go take some aspirin after that. We'll catch you on Wednesday. Again, I want to thank our guest tonight, George. It was such a great interview, and Steve Starr, Professor Steve Starr, kind of like opened up, I hope, some people's eyes. Well, till Wednesday, again, check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Tell your friends about the show. Tell them to subscribe to our channel. Give us a thumbs up and give us a good review on Apple Podcasts. We'll catch you on the other side.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to